Chapter 21:19. The heavenly Tao tree's eyes shone brightly. It did not back down. If you are unwilling, we can only separate you from the princess and never see you again. This is the only way you will not be implicated by the princess and the spiritual realm. Although my words are cruel, they are also for you. Princess, I hope you can understand. In the end, the heavenly Tao tree bowed deeply to Yi Fei to express its apologies. A half-step divine sovereign actually bowed to an early-stage sovereign junior. It was clear that the heavenly Tao tree had already made up its mind. If Yi Fei didn't accept the position of master of the spirit realm, it would have to use force. The heavenly Tao tree would also take Xiao Chao away from Yi Fei. Roar! Roar! Hearing that the heavenly Tao tree might take Xiao Chao away, the dragon turtle's entire shell turned emerald green. It was ready to attack at any time. Xiao Chao wiped away her tears as she held tightly onto the corner of Yi Fei's clothes. She also expressed to the heavenly Tao tree that Xiao Chao would never be separated from Yi Fei. Princess, I also do not want you to bear this burden. Otherwise, I would not have sent you to the earth realm. However, you are the only descendant of the spirit immortal race. Think about your dead mother, your dead clansmen, and the thousands of spirit immortals who died in battle. You cannot escape from this burden. You cannot escape from it. The heavenly Tao tree sighed. It had watched Xiao Chao grow up slowly. If it was possible, how could it watch Xiao Chao bear such a heavy burden? Hearing this, Xiao Chao clearly became hesitant. She looked at Yi Fei, and then looked at the statue of her mother that she had never seen before. Her face became very conflicted, and she even looked a little pained. However, just as Xiao Chao was at a loss, a hand touched her head and ruffled her hair. Her hair was tied up. Then, Yi Fei bent down and picked up the restless Xiao Chao again. He stared coldly at the heavenly Tao tree and said, I don't care about the spiritual realm. I only know that Xiao Chao is my companion and my closest kin. I will not allow her to bear a burden that does not belong to her at such a young age. Also, Xiao Chao did not run away and will not run away, because I will always stand by Xiao Chao's side. If there is any danger, come at me. I will not run away because I can bear it. I can fight. Finally, Yi Fei. Yi Fei did not know whether to laugh or cry. The originally solemn atmosphere was destroyed in an instant. Sensing the deep bond between Yi Fei and Xiao Chao, the heavenly Tao tree finally revealed a smile. So, you're willing to become the master of the spirit realm? Your threat is so obvious. Do I have any other choice? Yi Fei rolled his eyes in annoyance. Although there was a huge risk in being the master of the spirit realm, compared to losing Xiao Chao, Yi Fei still decided to brace himself and take this risk. Seeing that Yi Fei had finally nodded, the heavenly Tao tree was very excited. It immediately bowed and said, Rest assured, Spirit Master. From today onwards, this old servant and all the treants in the Grotto Heaven world will listen to the Spirit Master's orders. That's right, I will gather everyone to come and greet the Spirit Master. Wait. Yi Fei raised his hand to stop it. I agreed to be the Spirit Master because I do not want Xiao Chao to bear such a heavy burden. I have another question. Why me? If it was someone else who brought Xiao Chao into the heaven realm, would you also recognize that person as the spiritual realm's master? There are 3 conditions to become the spiritual realm's master. The heavenly Tao tree raised 3 fingers. First, this person must be recognized by the spirit immortal tribe. If he forcefully brought the little princess to the heaven realm without her approval, not only will we not recognize such a person as our master, but we will also immediately attack and kill him. Secondly, if you want to become the master of the spiritual realm, you must pass the test of us elders. My test for you was to protect the little princess at all costs in the earth realm. Obviously, you did it, and you have completed my test. Third, the Spirit Master once said that only warriors from the earth realm can become the spiritual realm's master. People from other realms are definitely not allowed. It was only now that Yi Fei realized that becoming the spiritual realm's master seemed simple, but there were actually so many conditions hidden behind it. He could understand the first two conditions, but he felt that the last one was very strange. Why is it that only people from the Earth realm can become the spiritual realm's master? Good question. Actually, I don't know why the Spirit Master insisted on bringing the little princess into the Earth realm, but the Spirit Master once said that people from the Earth realm, especially those of you with the bloodline of the earthly emperor, have a very terrifying power hidden within you. Once this power is released, even the innate gods and demons will be afraid. The heavenly Tao tree's gaze was very serious. Yi Fei's expression was very surprised. The bloodline of the earthly emperor? Senior heavenly Tao tree, you must be mistaken. I am a person abandoned by the heavens. Even the bloodline of the demon god was acquired. The heavenly Tao tree shook its head solemnly. I can be mistaken, but the Spirit Master definitely won't. Don't you find it strange that the real heavenly Tao did not target you in the heaven realm, but in the earth realm? The fake heavenly Tao has no consciousness and is always targeting people abandoned by the heavens? Boom! The heavenly Tao tree's words stunned Yi Fei. Only now did he realize a problem that he had neglected for a long time. In the heaven realm, he had experienced a few heavenly tribulations, but he was not targeted by the heavenly Tao. On the contrary, in the earth realm, every time he underwent a heavenly tribulation, the scale of the heavenly Tao would be incomparably terrifying. It would directly strike him to death. Could it be that I really have the bloodline of the earthly emperor in my body? But why don't I know about it? Yi Fei was very confused. He had always thought that people abandoned by the heavens were very unlucky and miserable. But now, it seemed that people abandoned by the heavens should be very powerful. Because your bloodline of the earthly emperor did not awaken and was completely sealed by the fake heavenly Tao. When you break this seal, the bloodline of the earthly emperor in your body will awaken, allowing you to have a natural mystique. In the heaven realm, there were two types of mystique. One was the martial arts mystique, which could be obtained through cultivation. The other was the natural mystique. This type of mystique was very rare, but its power was incomparably great. It could be continuously improved as the martial artist's realm increased. Moreover, the natural mystique could only be learned by the martial artist himself. Only the martial artist himself could fully unleash the power of the natural mystique. If the martial arts mystique could unleash 100% of its power, then the natural mystique could unleash 200% or even more. This completely depended on the person's bloodline and the strength of the natural mystique. And according to the heavenly Tao tree, people abandoned by the heavens possessed the very mysterious bloodline of the earthly emperor. This bloodline could awaken a powerful natural mystique. No wonder I always felt that people abandoned by the heavens were especially unlucky. Turns out that people abandoned by the heavens also have a bloodline, and it's a bloodline that has been sealed. Yi Fei looked at the heavenly Tao tree gloomily and asked, Senior heavenly Tao tree, then how should I break the bloodline seal in my body? Chapter 21:20. He had met such a person before. For example, Dark Sky Lord in the Earth realm seemed to have a heaven-abandoned body. However, Dark Sky Lord's Earth sovereign bloodline didn't seem to be very strong. His body was also suppressed by the rules of the Earth realm and the fake heavenly Tao, so he couldn't unleash the power of martial arts. Finally, he was tragically smashed into pieces by the undying sword soul. Yi Fei's heart was filled with regret. If he had known that the heaven-forsaken body also possessed the bloodline of the earthly sovereign, he would have spared Heavenly Lord Darkness life. Even if he had to torture him, he would have forced him to reveal the method to unseal his bloodline. Strange, since Dark Sky Lord is the same as me, a heaven-abandoned body, he should also be a person from the Earth realm. Why would he run to the Heaven realm and join the Sword Palace? That's right, the Sword Palace. Yi Fei slapped his head and finally thought of a way to unlock the seal. That was to head to the Sword Palace. Since the Sword Palace could send a heaven-abandoned body like Dark Sky Lord into the Earth realm to stir up trouble, it was very likely that the Sword Palace had a way to unlock the seal of the heaven-abandoned body. At the same time, Yi Fei also thought of the Nine Heavens Sword Master. The Nine Heavens Sword Master's consciousness once said that the undying sword soul would only choose a person abandoned by the heavens as a host. There are so many geniuses in the Earth realm, and there are many who have powerful bloodlines. There are even eternal divine bodies like deities and berserk divine bodies. And these two types of divine bodies have the legendary eternal divine blood and berserk devil blood. Their ranks are high and are top-notch in the heaven realm. Why didn't the undying sword soul choose these people? Wouldn't that allow them to enter the heaven realm faster? Then, under the guidance of the Nine Heavens Sword Master, they could quickly break through to Tao Lord and Divine Lord and head to the Sword Palace to find the Nine Heavens Sword Master's body? However, the Nine Heavens Sword Master chose to be in the Earth realm. People who are not favored and can't even cultivate are abandoned by the heavens? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Yi Fei felt as if there were layers of fog in front of him. The more he understood, the more confused he became. It seems that in order to unravel this mystery, I still need to go to the Sword Palace and find the Nine Heavens Sword Master himself. Yi Fei thought to himself. While Yi Fei was deep in thought, the heavenly Tao tree quickly gathered all the trance and spiritual creatures in the heavenly Tao world. Ahem, Yi Fei, no, I should call you Spirit Lord now. Since you've already agreed, let's strike while the iron is hot and settle this matter. With that said, the heavenly Tao tree was about to lead everyone to pay respects to Yi Fei. Once they were done, Yi Fei wouldn't be able to get rid of the mess in the spiritual realm. Yi Fei's expression instantly turned gloomy. The more I look at this heavenly Tao tree, the less it looks like a tree spirit. Instead, it looks more like an old fox. If only the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor was here. Speaking of schemes and machinations, that's his specialty. Why didn't I think of that? As he stared at the heavenly Tao tree, Yi Fei's eyes suddenly became brighter than the stars. In the past, he had only wanted to break through to become a Tao Lord, break through the barrier of the heaven realm, and return to the earth realm. However, he had neglected this. He could still borrow the strength of others to return to the earth realm. The heavenly Tao tree in front of him was the best external force. Not only was the heavenly Tao tree itself a half-step divine lord, but it could also freely enter and exit the heaven realm and the earth realm. More importantly, not only could the heavenly Tao tree freely enter and exit the heaven realm, but it also seemed to be able to bring a large number of spiritual creatures into the heaven realm. This gave Yi Fei an extremely bold idea. Yi Fei immediately nodded happily and said, I can accept the position of master of the spiritual realm. However, if I become the master of the spiritual realm, will all of you really listen to my orders? As he spoke, Yi Fei revealed a very bright and simple smile. However, seeing this smile, the heavenly Tao tree felt its bark go numb. It seemed to recall that when Yi Fei had plucked all the heavenly Tao fruits from its clone in the land of buried gods, he had even gone crazy and wanted to pluck all its tree leaves. Helplessly, it still needed Yi Fei to take back the spiritual realm. The heavenly Tao tree could only smile bitterly and say, Of course, if you become the spiritual master, we will naturally listen to your orders. In that case, if I order Senior to bring my family and friends from the earth realm to the heaven realm, Senior won't reject it too much, right? Yi Fei had been waiting for these words. With his own strength, even if he became a Tao Lord, he could only return to the earth realm. However, it was very difficult for the human sovereign realm in the earth realm. If he could bring the forces of the human sovereign realm and the Witch Emperor Palace, it would be very different with the heavenly Tao tree. No, definitely not. Brat, do you know how much energy it takes to break through the barrier once? If you bring people up, the energy consumption will be even more terrifying. 3 to 5 people can still do it, but I won't be able to handle more than that. The heavenly Tao tree was not stupid. Yi Fei's forces in the earth realm were so great that he had relatives and friends. There must be a lot of them. If he really brought them up one by one, he would be exhausted to death. Moreover, as a half-step god, the heavenly Tao tree still had its dignity. It did not want to become Yi Fei's porter, transporting goods from the earth realm to the heaven realm all day long. Yi Fei did not force it. He just turned his head and asked Xiao Qiao, do you miss that little girl Ling Siki? Do you want to play with her when you are in the heaven realm? Squeak. Thinking of his little friend Ling Siki in the earth realm and the happy experience of photographing the dragon turtle with her, Xiao Qiao's eyes lit up like stars. Then, like Yi Fei, he stared at the heavenly Tao tree with bright eyes, looking very pitiful. At this moment, another black turtle suddenly appeared beside the heavenly Tao tree's feet. It wagged its tail fiercely and rubbed against the heavenly Tao tree's thigh. Rip! The dragon turtle accidentally scraped a piece of cloth off the heavenly Tao tree's green robe. The heavenly Tao tree's face twitched involuntarily. Xiao Qiao was the last royal member of the spirit immortal race, and Yi Fei was the future lord of the spirit realm. No matter how unwilling the heavenly Tao tree was, it could only nod its head gloomily and kick the dragon turtle away. I can help you bring your friends and family up here, but you have to spend a lot of money. You're prepared to spend a fortune, and the more people I bring, the more terrifying the consumption of your profound veins will be. What? My Xian veins will be exhausted when I bring people up? Yi Fei was very shocked. Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle were also very heartbroken. This was because Yi Fei no longer had any Xian veins in his body. He was only left with a few Xian stones, which were not even enough for Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle to eat. The heavenly Tao tree also scolded angrily. Every time we break the barrier of the heaven realm, even a monarch god will need to exhaust a lot of energy. Moreover, I am only a half-step monarch god, and I still have to help you bring people from the earth realm. If I don't have Xian veins, I will die of exhaustion. Yi Fei only knew now that even a monarch god would not be able to bring people from the earth realm up to the heaven realm easily, unless he could release his immortal blood like Xiao Qiao. However, even with the immortal blood, entering the heaven realm was random. That way, even if Yi Fei brought people up, it would be meaningless. Chapter 21:21. However, the amount of energy needed to bring people from the earth realm up to the heaven realm was terrifying. For example, the heavenly Tao tree did not bring all the spiritual beings from the land of buried gods up to the heaven realm in one go. Instead, it divided them into several batches and spent a few decades before it succeeded. On one hand, the heavenly Tao tree consumed a lot of energy every time it broke through the barrier. On the other hand, the spiritual beings were too weak. Knowing that Yi Fei was determined to bring the people from the earth realm up, the heavenly Tao tree, who had no choice but to become a porter, could only explain the difficulties to Yi Fei in detail. Spirit Master, you don't know. This damned barrier of the heaven realm is very deceptive. The weaker the living beings in the earth realm are, the harder it is for them to pass through the barrier. The more energy they need, the more terrifying it is. For example, the martial god does not have immortal spirit blood. If you want to bring him up to the heaven realm, you need at least 10 mystic veins. Martial emperors need 100, and martial emperors need 1,000. Spirit Master, are you sure? Can you take out so many mystic veins? I can't. Yi Fei's expression was extremely ugly. We can't either. If we don't become godly sovereigns, we won't be able to leave this grotto heaven world. Moreover, the grotto heaven world doesn't have any. It turned out that the grotto heaven world did not have mystic veins or mystic energy. It could only rely on devouring the energy of the heaven realm to maintain the existence of the winter world. This was also why there would always be a grotto heaven world that would connect with the heaven realm and devour the heaven realm every once in a while. This was how the grotto heaven world replenished its energy either actively or passively. If the grotto heaven world lost its energy, there would only be one outcome: destruction. This was also why the heavenly Tao tree was unwilling to help Yi Fei bring people from the earth realm. If it did not want to use up the grotto heaven world's energy, the heavenly Tao tree could only use its own energy. In this way, even if the heavenly Tao tree was a half-step godly sovereign, it would die of exhaustion if it did not replenish its energy. Spirit Master, this is the situation. Either you have a large amount of profound veins, or I can only reluctantly help you bring a few of your most important people up. Of course, if you dare to have designs on the little princess celestial blood, then this old man will definitely not agree. As he spoke, the heavenly Tao tree glared at him. Although he was in heaven, his clone had always been hiding in earth to protect Xiao Chao. How could he not know that Yi Fei had used Xiao Chao's celestial blood to enter heaven? Regarding this, Yi Fei was quite upset. However, I won't try to target Xiao Chao, but that doesn't mean I can't target other people. I don't have a large number of profound veins, but that doesn't mean that other people don't have them. For example, that Lord of Heaven Guo from the Medicine Manor. The soaring serpent broke through to become a Tao Lord at this very moment. The more he thought about it, the more feasible it seemed. Immediately, Yi Fei looked at the war treant who could speak human language and said, "Senior, please bring Lord of Heaven Guo and the soaring serpent to me, but don't kill them." The war treant subconsciously looked at the heavenly Tao tree, but the heavenly Tao tree's face was as black as charcoal. It forced a smile and said, "Not only me, but also all of you must obey the orders of the Spirit Master and the little princess." "Yes, Spirit Master." Only then did the war treant nod honestly and use the treant language to shout into the distance. Very quickly, Lord of Heaven Guo and the dead soaring serpent were dragged over by two war treants. The soaring serpent was still crying out desperately, "Divine Lord, please spare my life. I didn't see anything, and I will definitely not reveal the existence of the war treants." "Yi Fei, who exactly are you? How can you not be captured?" When the Lord of Heaven Guo was defeated, he was severely injured and unconscious, so he did not see the scene of Yi Fei being treated well by the treants. However, when he saw that Yi Fei, who was once an ant that he could easily crush, had suddenly become an honored guest of the treants and seemed to have a high status, the Lord of Heaven Guo felt bitter. If he had known that Yi Fei had such a good relationship with the treants, he would not have let him go back in the dark fog. He should have wanted to hand over Yi Fei and negotiate with the soaring serpent. In the end, he and the soaring serpent were beaten to death before they could reach an agreement. Now that he saw Yi Fei again, the Lord of Heaven Guo suddenly felt ashamed. However, what shocked the Lord of Heaven Guo even more was the words of the old man who seemed to be the Divine Lord. "Impudent! How dare you call the Spirit Lord by his name?" The heavenly Tao Tree Lord was imposing without being angry. Like the heavenly Tao, the soaring serpent was so frightened that it trembled all over. At this moment, it widened its snake eyes and looked at Yi Fei in disbelief. He is a Spirit Lord. No, he is a human, not an immortal spirit. How can he be a Spirit Lord? Yi Fei also smiled at the soaring serpent, who was as soft as noodles. "Who told you that a human can't become a Spirit Lord? However, the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life, and I am a standard honest person. How about this? If you can hand over all the mystic veins you have, I will not kill you. What do you think?" Hiss! Hiss! What answered him was the soaring serpent's furious roar. You killed my serpent slave, stole my dragon orb, and even ordered that little girl to torture me in every way possible. Now you actually want to rob me? This is clearly a bandit playing hooligan. Your ancestor, will definitely not submit." "Is that so? That's too bad. Xiao Qiao, drag him out and beat him to death. Yi Fei did not say anything else, and had already handed the soaring serpent to Xiao Qiao. Don't come over. Heavens! What sin have I committed to actually encounter such a terrifying person? Seeing that Xiao Qiao was about to come over and beat him to death, even the ferocious soaring serpent was so frightened that its snake body trembled. Its ferocious expression immediately turned into an apologetic smile, looking extremely pitiful. It shouted at Yi Fei's back, "Demon Yi, you win. As long as you let me go, I will tell you where my mystic veins are hidden." Let you go? Don't tell me I'll let you escape again. Yi Fei turned around and sneered. Snakes were fickle and vengeful, and this soaring serpent was fickle and vengeful. How could he believe it? Young Master Yi, that soaring serpent may not be trustworthy, but I am definitely trustworthy. As long as you don't kill me, I am willing to give you all the mystic veins I have accumulated over the years. That's right, I can also swear that I am willing to serve you as my master. I only ask that you don't kill me. Compared to the cunning soaring serpent, the Lord of Heaven was undoubtedly a cautious and calm person. He understood that after knowing the secret of the spirit immortal tribe, even if he gave up his mystic veins, he might not be able to save his life. He might as well just surrender. Even though it was somewhat shameful for the Lord of Heaven to surrender to a ruler, the Lord of Heaven did not want to die like this. He had worked so hard to become the Lord of Heaven, but he did not want to die like this. At this, Yi Fei was very shocked. He no longer cared about soaring serpent, but looked at the Lord of Heaven in shock. You are the Lord of Heaven, and a high-ranking member of the Medicine Manor. Are you really willing to submit to me? I surrender. The Lord of Heaven was even more straightforward, but in his heart there was a deep, cold, murderous intent. His surrender to Yi Fei was only a temporary measure to save his life. Once he deceived Yi Fei and returned to the Medicine Manor, the Lord of Heaven swore that not only would he reveal the secret of the spirit immortal tribe, he would also personally destroy Blackstone. He would take revenge for today's humiliation. Chapter 21-22. Swear? Don't you know that past human emperors are best at swearing? And every time they swear, a group of people will die. Yi Fei looked at the Lord of Heaven speechlessly. However, the surrender of the two Lords of Heaven would greatly increase the strength of the Black Rock Peak. Yi Fei temporarily suppressed his desire to kill the soaring serpent and the Lord of Heaven. He looked at the heavenly tree and said, "It's a pity to kill these two Lords of Heaven. If I can make good use of them, they will be of great help to me in establishing a foothold in the Bayou Nation. I wonder if Senior has a way to make them submit to me without being able to resist?" Resist? The heavenly tree nodded and said, "It's good to accept these two Lords of Heaven. We are trapped in the Grotto Heaven world and can't get out easily. These two Lords of Heaven can be of some help. It just so happens that my spiritual realm has a special divine inscription that can make them unable to resist any of the Spirit Lord's orders. Heavenly Book, come here." Whoosh! With a wave of the Heavenly Book's hand, the Heavenly Book of Spirit Transformation flew over from the palace in the distance. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a white-robed scholar who bowed to Yi Fei and said, "The Heavenly Book greets the Spirit Lord. It's easy to control these two, but I don't know if the Spirit Lord wants them to become puppets or slaves." "What about slaves?" "Let them become slaves," Yi Fei said. After all, the Lord of Heaven was a high-ranking member of the Medicine King Manor. If he became a puppet, it would attract the hostility of the Medicine King Manor. Then, Yi Fei walked up to the Lord of Heaven and the soaring serpent and said in a deep voice, "Soaring serpent, Lord of Heaven, I'm giving you a chance. As long as you are dead set on submitting to me for 100 years, I will remove your slave seals and return you your freedom. Are you willing to accept?" The Lord of Heaven and the soaring serpent's expressions changed drastically. As Lords of Heaven, how could they be willing to submit to Yi Fei? It was just that their strength was inferior, and Yi Fei did not want them to be slaves for life. Instead, he gave them 100 years. This greatly reduced their will to resist. After all, 100 years was not a long time for the Lord of Heaven. Moreover, Yi Fei believed that after 100 years, he would have broken through to the monarch level. He did not need to take these two insignificant lords seriously. "All right, I'm willing to serve you of heaven for 100 years. After 100 years, I hope you will keep your promise and return me my freedom." The first to submit was the Lord of Heaven. This person was meticulous and straightforward. Knowing that he could not fool Yi Fei, the Lord of Heaven could only give up on taking revenge on Yi Fei. Seeing that the Lord of Heaven had surrendered, the soaring serpent nodded with an ugly expression for the sake of his own life. He allowed the heavenly book to command the two treants to take them away. Yi Fei then looked at the heavenly book and said, "Is the slave seal of the spiritual realm reliable?" The heavenly book smiled and said, "Absolutely. The heavenly book will engrave the divine runes of the slave seal directly into their souls. Once they have any thoughts of resisting you, their souls will collapse and they will die. Moreover, it is impossible to remove such a slave seal unless one is a monarch god." A monarch god? In the whole of Qingzhou, the strongest person was only a Dao monarch. It was impossible for a monarch god to appear. Thinking of this, Yi Fei finally felt relieved about the Lord of Heaven and the soaring serpent. Moreover, with these two Lord of Heaven submitting to him, he had gained a firm foothold in the Baiyun nation. He spoke to the heavenly book for a while more. At this time, the heavenly book brought Yi Fei and Xiao Chao to the sculpture of the previous spiritual lord. That peerlessly beautiful woman looked at Xiao Chao lovingly again. This time, Xiao Chao was no longer nervous. With Yi Fei's encouragement and the heavenly book's permission, Xiao Chao walked towards the sculpture in a relaxed manner. He walked towards the sculpture. Boom! The statue transformed into a layer of 10-colored divine light, which quickly enveloped Xiao Chao. Yi Fei couldn't help but feel nervous. The heavenly Dao tree said, "Don't worry, the Spirit Lord is the little princess's mother. She won't harm the little princess. Right now, the little princess has already begun to receive the inheritance of the immortal Spirit Royal family. Once the inheritance is complete, she will be able to awaken her second natal mystique." What? A second natal mystique? Then Xiao Chao's first natal mystique is the deity Whipping Whip? Yi Fei was extremely shocked. For other cultivators, being able to awaken one innate divine ability was already considered a blessing. However, Xiao Chao was able to awaken two. From this, it could be seen how powerful the bloodline of the spirit immortal race was. Then, he thought of his sealed earthly sovereign bloodline and his face darkened. While Xiao Chao was receiving the inheritance of the spirit immortal royal family, the flying serpent and the Lord of Heaven were also branded with the divine mark of the slave seal. They returned to the palace sullenly. Even more sullenly, the heavenly book took out a token and handed it to Yi Fei. "Spiritual Lord, this token can control the divine mark in their souls. If they are disobedient, you can activate the token and they will suffer a fate worse than death. They will definitely not dare to disobey your orders. It's over. What sin have I committed?" The Lord of Heaven and the flying serpent screamed at the same time. With the slave seal and the token, they could no longer disobey Yi Fei's orders. They could only serve Yi Fei wholeheartedly. Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He immediately refined the token and hid it away. Then, he ordered the Lord of Heaven and the flying serpent. "Guo Lord of Heaven, flying serpent, I don't care what method you use. Within 3 days, bring all of your Xian veins here. My lord, don't be too greedy. At least leave some for us. We need to cultivate too." It was already embarrassing to be forced to become Yi Fei's slaves. Now, their Xian veins were being plundered. The Lord of Heaven and the flying serpent were so angry that they almost vomited blood. At this time, the heavenly tree suddenly scolded, "You two idiots! The spiritual lord's future is limitless. If you follow him, you might even break through to Tao Lord or Divine Lord. If you don't invest now, are you going to sit back and enjoy the fruits of his labor? Sigh, I hope so. But why do I have a feeling that those Xian veins will go to waste? The flying serpent and the Lord of Heaven were both cowardly. They didn't have their belongings with them. Instead, they hid them in places they thought were the safest. Therefore, after handing over a few hundred Xian veins, the two of them left the paradise world with tears in their eyes. They ran back to where they hid their Xian veins and brought the Xian veins they had painstakingly accumulated over the years into the paradise world. Because the two of them had the slave seal, Yi Fei wasn't afraid that they would betray him. He let them leave without worry. After reporting to Jiang Zhen and the others that they were safe, Yi Fei and the heavenly tree went to the most mysterious place in the paradise world. Spiritual Lord, look. This is the most famous divine bridge of heaven and earth of our spirit immortal tribe. This bridge was built in imitation of the Lord of Heaven's sky bridge. It can connect heaven and earth, and it can also pass through the barriers of the heavens to enter the earth realm. However, every time the divine bridge is activated, it requires an astonishing amount of energy. Chapter 21-23. At this moment, Yi Fei had been in the heaven realm for almost 2 years. 2 years was nothing in the heaven realm, but in the land realm, it was almost 20 years. I wonder how Shanshan and the others are doing in the land realm. Has Uncle Jian broken through to the martial god realm? There are also my 2 brothers, Luo Shi and Xia Junjing Wushou and Zhao Qianjun, my 2 senior brothers, the Grand Supreme Dean, Dongfang Yu, Di Fan, Fu Renjie, and my other good friends. Yi Fei realized that he still had so many concerns in the land realm. He was even worried about the human emperor's palace and the sorcerer emperor's palace. He was afraid that after he left, both parties would clash again. 3 days later, Soaring Snake and Guotianjun returned one after the other. They also brought all of their belongings, a total of 35,000 profound veins. When they handed over the Xian veins, Meng Shi's face was distorted. The Lord of Heaven couldn't help but feel pained. However, their pained feelings quickly turned into intense shock. This was because Yi Fei didn't use these Xian veins for cultivation. Instead, he threw them all into a very special heavenly bridge of heaven and earth. After accumulating enough energy, the heavenly bridge of heaven and earth suddenly turned into a terrifying light bridge that seemed to extend into endless time and space. At this moment, the heavenly tree stood on the light bridge and walked into time and space. Then, the heavenly tree's figure was gradually engulfed by the endless power of time and space. At the same time, Yi Fei vaguely saw a tall figure on the other side of time and space. It was the heavenly tree's figure. It's a success. This heavenly bridge of heaven and earth can indeed connect the heaven realm and the land realm, Yi Fei said excitedly. Meng Shi and the Lord of Heaven looked at each other and secretly laughed at Yi Fei's low cultivation level and lack of knowledge. After spending so much effort, he actually entered a low-level world. It's really a pity for our Xian veins. Meng Shi and the Lord of Heaven felt even more pained. Just like that, they waited for another 3 days. Boom! On the other side of the heaven and earth divine bridge, the power of time and space began to surge again. It was as if a powerful force had broken through time and space, breaking through the barrier of the earth realm and entering the heaven realm. I, Di Fan, have finally come to the heaven realm. A figure that looked like a war god in white appeared on the divine bridge. It was Di Fan, the born saint. After 20 years, Di Fan had become more and more dignified. Around him, purple energy surged, turning into a divine armor that covered his body. Innate saint? How is that possible? The Lord of Heaven Guo's eyes were wide open, as if he couldn't believe that a natural saint could be born in such a lowly realm. Di Fan, what are you so proud of? It's just that you're half a step ahead of me. When we reach the heavenly realm, let's continue our fight. See if I don't beat you to the ground. The chaotic spacetime was torn apart again. Then, a ferocious-looking demonic dragon rushed out from the spacetime. This demonic dragon's physical body was extremely terrifying. It could actually resist the invasion of the spacetime energy. Then, it transformed into a black-robed young man with monstrous demonic chi. Heavens, the body of the demonic dragon, the heavenly embryo of a demon. That's the heavenly embryo of a demon that the elder ancestor dreamed of. How could it be born in the body of a mere ant? Mengshi beat his chest and stamped his feet. If he had such a physique, he would have refined the poison dragon pearl long ago. How could he let that black pig have it so easily? Roar, roar. Sensing the aura of a dragon in the surroundings, the dragon turtle was in high spirits. It carried a black pot and rushed over. After all, the dragon turtle loved to eat flood dragon meat the most. However, after seeing that it was Fu Renjie who was emitting the aura of a dragon, the dragon turtle immediately put the black pot away. Even so, the appearance of the dragon turtle gave Fu Renjie and Di Fan a big fright. That's Brother Ye's black turtle. It actually broke through to the Heavenly Lord level so quickly. Hey, there's a big snake here. I haven't eaten snake meat for a long time. I'm so hungry. In the chaotic spacetime, a simple and honest little fatty walked out at this time. This was actually Pompey, who had become a foodie 20 years later. When Pompey stared at Mengshi with shining eyes, Mengshi had the illusion that the one staring at him was not a person, but a terrifying violent ape that could destroy the heavens and the earth. Even if it was the Lord of Heaven, Mengshi still had a feeling of fear and trepidation. They are all from the Earth realm. How is it possible? How can there be so many terrifying bloodlines in such a low-level world? The Lord of Heaven stuttered. His words caused the other two people on the bridge to be very dissatisfied. They were a divine swordsman with a heavy sword on his back and a man in black with an evil look on his face. When they heard the Lord of Heaven's words, the two of them looked over with high fighting spirit. Jing Wushou, we are already invincible in the Earth realm. Now that we are in the Heaven realm, we can finally fight to our heart's content. Zhao Qianjun, don't be rash. Didn't you hear what the heavenly tree said? The rules of the Heaven realm are different from the rules of the Earth realm. In the Earth realm, we can destroy the heavens and the earth, but in the Heaven realm, we can only break a stone. Even if it's the most ordinary stone, I can guarantee that I can smash a heavenly venerable to death with it. In the chaotic spacetime, a withered old man walked out slowly. This was the guardian elder of the Six Paths Sacred Clan. In the Earth realm, the guardian elder had broken through to the earthly venerable rank. Behind the guardian elder were two beautiful young girls. One of them was wearing a palace dress and was as pure as an ice goddess. The other had a long sword on her back, and her long hair was casually tied behind her head. She was as carefree as a fairy in the wind. When they saw Yi Fei, their eyes lit up at the same time. Brother! Master! Boom! The soaring serpent and the Lord of Heaven were dumbfounded by the way the two young girls addressed each other. They would never have thought that Yi Fei would come from the Earth realm. It was no wonder that Yi Fei would pay such a huge price to communicate with the Heaven realm and the Earth realm. Since when did the low-level Earth realm produce so many powerful bloodlines and so many outstanding talent? The Lord of Heaven was dumbfounded. Even though the realms of these people from the Earth realm were so low that it made one's hair stand on end, their temperament and spirit were rare even among the younger generation of the Heaven realm. If these people don't die, it's very likely that one of them will be the Lord of Heaven, a Tao Lord expert. And that kid seems to have the potential to break through to the God Lord level. The soaring serpent was shocked as he voiced his judgment. Then, the soaring serpent felt his tail itch. It was the little fatty with the terrifying aura of vicious beasts. He had appeared in front of the soaring serpent unknowingly, and was even grabbing the soaring serpent's tail, as if he was judging whether the soaring serpent's meat was delicious or not. Chapter 21-24. The heavenly path tree was not biased. After all, after discovering the way to enter the heaven realm, if it only allowed humans to enter, it would cause the sorcerer tribe to be displeased. Therefore, Yi Fei also left a quota for the sorcerer tribe in the migration list. However, the sorcerer tribe members who were allowed to migrate to the land realm had all taken the Great Witch Oath and were loyal to Yi Fei's powerful sorcerer gods. However, not all the sorcerer gods chose to follow the heavenly path tree to the Bayou Nation. Before the heavenly path tree entered the land realm, 2/3 of the veteran sorcerer gods had already used the blood of immortals to enter the heaven realm. There were not many sorcerer gods who came this time. Among them, Gong Zhu and Shui Yao were among them. Meng Shi and Lord of Heaven contributed a total of 35,000 Xian meridians. In other words, the number of martial gods who could cross the bridge of heaven and earth to enter the land realm was 350. Those who could enter the heaven realm in the first batch were definitely the most powerful people in the land realm. Among them, 2/3 were young people. For example, Xia Jun and Luo Shi had already broken through to the martial god realm and were qualified to enter the heaven realm. With so many people entering the heavenly path world, the entire heavenly path world became lively. However, the heavenly path tree made everyone who entered the heavenly path world swear that they would never tell anyone about what happened here. After all, the spiritual immortal tribe's enemies were too powerful. If they were exposed, they would immediately be annihilated. Therefore, the people who were allowed to move to the heaven realm this time had all gone through the strict selection of the celestial tree. They were all mid-level martial gods and above. The strongest, such as Di Fan, had already reached the peak of the earthly venerable realm. If Di Fan had not made an agreement with Pejun and the others to enter the heaven realm together, they would not have been able to enter the heaven realm. Di Fan might have broken through the barrier and entered the heaven realm alone 10 years ago. Yi Fei also had a regret in his heart, and that was that Sword Maniac Elder did not follow the crowd to the heaven realm. Clearly, Sword Maniac Elder still insisted on his own ideals and was prepared to use his Path of the Heart sword to break through the barrier of the heaven realm alone and enter the heaven realm to cultivate. While Yi Fei was helpless, he could only send his blessings silently. In the next few days, other than distributing the large number of God Power pills he had collected and removing the heaven realm seal on everyone, Yi Fei spent the rest of his time waiting on the steps of the palace, waiting for Xiao Chao to obtain the inheritance of the spirit immortal tribe and come out as soon as possible. However, he was still young to enter the heaven realm. Xiao Chao was still heaven realm. Xiao was still young to receive the inheritance. It would take him a long time to obtain the inheritance. Xiao to accept inheritance. Young inheritance. In this regard, Yi Fei had no better idea. Other than instructing the dragon turtle to wait for Xiao Chao on the steps, Yi Fei decided to bring everyone out of the heavenly abode and officially enter the heaven realm. Only in the heaven realm could Di Fan and the rest rely on their own talents to grow quickly. Strange, Brother Yi has been in there for so long. Why hasn't he come out yet? Lin Chen and Lin Gui were still waiting outside the dark mist. They had used this period of time to break through to the Dominator realm. Behind them was Jiang Zhen with his hands behind his back. He still remembered how shocked he was when the Flying Serpent and Lord of Heaven came out a month ago to tell him that Yi Fei was fine. Even if you beat Jiang Zhen to death, he could not understand why Guitianjun, a high-ranking official of the Medicine Manor, would suddenly become so polite to Yi Fei. The Flying Serpent was obviously the master of the snake slaves that attacked the mountain. Now, he had a gentle expression on his face. He greeted Jiang Zhen and quickly went down the mountain. Finally, not long after the Flying Serpent and Lord of Heaven left the mountain, Yi Fei walked out of the dark mist alone. Seeing Jiang Zhen and the other two guarding the mountain all night, he was slightly touched. "Senior Jiang, sorry for making you worry. Brother Yi, let's not waste time on pleasantries. Hurry up and tell us what's going on with Guotianjun and the flying serpent. Why do I feel like their attitude towards you is a bit strange? Lin Chen and Lin Gui were a bit worried. Although Yi Fei had destroyed the Blood Wolf Gang, he had offended the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Now, no one dared to join the Black Rock Peak. Half a year was almost up, but there were still only 4 of them in the Black Rock Peak. Lin Chen and Lin Gui were worried to death. Although Jiang Zhen did not say it, he was also very depressed. Yi Fei also understood their worries. In the past, he might have been worried, but now… Yi Fei smiled and assured them, "Don't worry, Lord of Heaven and the Flying Serpent are on our side. Moreover, soon there will be a large number of experts joining our Black Rock Peak." Really? That Gao Yu is ruthless. I heard that he has already said that in this half a year, whoever dares to join our Black Rock Peak will be going against him. In the past, there were still rogue cultivators gathered around our Black Rock Peak. Now, other than the 4 of us, there's not even a shadow. Lin Gui and Lin Gui were very suspicious. Was Yi Fei comforting them? Yi Fei did not explain and just walked down the mountain in large strides. This made Jiang Zhen and the other 2 even more confused. But soon, they saw an extremely shocking scene. They did not know when, but there was actually a large group of people at the foot of the mountain. These people are… Jiang Zhen and the other 2 were shocked at the same time, thinking that enemies had come to attack the mountain again. "They're all people from my hometown. I once asked the Lord of Heaven to send a letter for them to come and seek refuge with me. Now they're finally here," Yi Fei explained calmly. Lin Chen and Lin Gui looked as if they had seen a ghost. People from Yi Fei's hometown? Why didn't they know? But when they saw that these people who came up the mountain were all below the heavenly venerable level, they let go of their worries and thought that these were all rogue cultivators that Yi Fei knew. Only Jiang Zhen's eyes flashed. He whispered to Yi Fei, "Yi Fei, they're all the same as you, that's right, they're all from the Earth Realm." Yi Fei also whispered. After all, people from the Earth Realm were more sensitive in the Heaven Realm. Moreover, Yi Fei could not completely trust Lin Chen and Lin Gui. Naturally, he did not dare to leak the matter of the Earth Realm and expose the Grotto Heaven World and the Trance. Therefore, before walking out of the dark fog, Yi Fei asked the Lord of Heaven and the Flying Serpent to go down the mountain in advance and prepare the teleportation platform. Then, everyone would be teleported out from the Grotto Heaven World and pretend that they were rogue cultivators seeking refuge. This way they could keep the secret. Understanding Yi Fei's painstaking efforts, Jiang Zhen nodded knowingly. Suddenly, he asked, "What's up with the Lord of Heaven and the Flying Serpent? Why are they so cooperative with you? Aren't you afraid that they'll leak the news?" "Don't worry. The Lord of Heaven and the Flying Serpent have already submitted to me. They won't dare to leak any news about me," Yi Fei said calmly. Chapter 21-25. What? Reorganize our forces? Yi Fei did not expect Jiang Zhen to ask such a sharp question. After all, he, Jiang Zhen, and the Lin brothers were forced to unite because of the imperial family of the Sky River. Now that the threat of the imperial family of the Sky River had passed, a large number of people from the Earth domain were moving to the Heaven domain. At this time, it was not appropriate to maintain the leaderless situation of the Black Rock Peak. Jiang Zhen's side was fine, but Lin Chen and Lin Gui were very depressed. After all, their greatest wish was to rebuild the Lin family. How could they be willing to be swallowed up by the Black Rock Peak? At the same time, Jiang Zhen's words were coincidentally heard by the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor was now an upper-level martial god, and would soon break through to the earthly venerable rank. He smiled and walked up the mountain. He said with certainty, "Of course we have to reorganize our forces. In the past, the Black Rock Peak only had 4 people and could not be considered a force. However, there will be a time when the Black Rock Peak will expand. At this time, There must be an outstanding person to lead us and be the leader of this force. According to the rules of our hometown, the leader does not have to be the strongest, but he must be able to convince the masses. Lord Heavengua and Lord Heavengua, who do you think is the most suitable leader of the Black Rock Peak? Of course, it's young Master Yi. The Lord Heavengua and Mengshi said together, as if they had discussed this beforehand. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor's eyes flashed. He suddenly said in a low voice, "Then, Lord Heavengua and Lord Heaven, should we pay our respects to the Peak Master now?" The Lord Heavengua and Mengshi hated that they could not drag this sinister martial god out and beat him to death on the spot. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor was obviously trying to create momentum and help Yi Fei rise to the position. However, the two of them had unfortunately become the best tools to create momentum. The two of them were furious. However, when they thought of the divine pattern slave seal in their souls, the Lord Heavengua and Mengshi still felt very sullen. They knelt on one knee and said loudly, "Greetings, Peak Master." Boom! The sudden submission of the two Lord of Heaven had a huge impact on Lin Chun and Lin Gui. Even though Jiang Zhen knew about this beforehand, his heart couldn't help but tremble once again. He then laughed bitterly, knowing that the Divine Star Academy had already been annexed by Yi Fei, and it was already irreversible. Forget it, the Black Rock Peak cannot remain without a Peak Lord. Since Yi Fei has such intentions, my Divine Star Academy is willing to accept him as our Peak Lord. Jiang Zhen also expressed his attitude. In the end, only the two rulers, Lin Chun and Lin Gui, remained silent. However, when they saw the two Lord of Heaven kneel in front of Yi Fei to express their allegiance, the two brothers smiled bitterly and shook their heads. It was a tacit agreement that Yi Fei had become the master of Black Rock Peak. The two of them discussed for a while before Lin Chun stood out and said, "Brother Yi, we can follow your orders, but we have a condition. You have to help us take revenge for the Lin family." Lin Chun, Lin Gui, don't worry. The Lin family's blood feud, the Divine Star Academy's blood feud, and the feud between me and the Sky River royal family, I will settle it with my own hands sooner or later. The Sky River royal family won't be able to jump around for long, Yi Fei said confidently. The current him was no longer alone. A large number of experts from the Earth realm would enter the Heaven realm to strengthen the Black Rock Peak. The Battle Trance and the Heavenly Tao Tree Lord were his strongest trump cards. If it wasn't for the fact that it was too difficult for the Battle Trance to walk out of the heavenly abode, Yi Fei would have already destroyed the Sky River Kingdom. Strength. However, that will have to wait until the Heavenly Tao Tree Lord breaks through to the Monarch God level. Only by breaking through to the Monarch God level would the Heavenly Tao Tree Lord be able to break the seal of the heavenly abode and lead the Battle Trance back to the Heaven realm. Before that, what Yi Fei needed to do was to silently develop the forces in his hands. In the following days, the entire Black Rock Peak became busy. Since they had reorganized their forces, they had to establish the corresponding functions. After some discussion, Yi Fei decided to divide the Black Rock Peak's forces into three parts. The Divine Star Academy, which Yi Fei handed over to Jiang Zhen and the Grand Supreme Dean, would be in charge. They would be in charge of teaching the people from the Earth realm to quickly break through to the Heavenly Venerate and Ruler level. The Sky Martial Academy, which Yi Fei handed over to the Guardian Elder, Di Fan, and the others, would be in charge. They would become the backbone of the Black Rock Peak's battle. Finally, the Lord Heaven Academy, which Yi Fei would personally take charge of. He would control the Lord Heaven Gua and Meng Shi, the two Lord Heaven experts. At the same time, Lin Chun and Lin Gui would also belong to the Lord Heaven Academy. They would be personally taught by the Lord Heaven Gua and Meng Shi on how to quickly break through to the Lord Heaven realm. Lin Chun and Lin Gui were very satisfied with this arrangement. It more or less eliminated the disappointment of the Lin family being annexed by the Black Rock Peak. Moreover, Yi Fei clearly told the two brothers that once they broke through to the Lord Heaven realm and destroyed the Heavenly River Imperial family, they could leave the Black Rock Peak at any time and rebuild their families in the Heavenly River Kingdom. In this way, not only did Yi Fei take care of his own forces in the Earth domain, he also comforted the Lin brothers. Most importantly, he rebuilt the Divine Star Academy in the Black Rock Peak, allowing a large number of Earth domain cultivators to enter the Divine Star Academy to study. This fulfilled Jiang Zhen's greatest wish to revitalize the Divine Star Academy. Of course, Yi Fei was not the only one who could perfectly integrate all of this. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor and Shang Jing, the chief of the Merchant Alliance, also gave many suggestions. Yi Fei simply threw the daily affairs of the Black Rock Peak to them and once again became a hands-off shopkeeper. After entering the Paradise World, he waited for Xiao Chao to accept the inheritance while working hard on his cultivation, striving to break through to the Lord Heaven realm as soon as possible. As for the Lord Heaven Gua, although he had submitted to Yi Fei, the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor suggested that the Lord Heaven Gua retain his status as a high-ranking member of the Medicine King Manor. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor also took this opportunity to personally visit the Medicine King Manor and curry favor everywhere. Not only did he befriend many important people in the Medicine King Manor, he also gave the Black Rock Peak some benefit. He obtained many benefits from the Black Rock Peak. The Lord Heaven Gua also used the excuse of investigating the secrets of the Paradise World to visit the Black Rock Peak from time to time. He also brought with him large amounts of resources from the Medicine King Manor. With the accumulation of these resources, peerless geniuses like Di Fan immediately exploded with dazzling brilliance. After a month in the Heaven Realm, Di Fan completely grasped the divine spear of fluttering snow. Fu Renjie also grasped the 8th-level Heavenly Dragon and officially broke through to the Heavenly Venerate level. Currently, he was in seclusion to comprehend the Divine 5 Thunder Clock, the sovereign ability. Unexpectedly, the second batch of people to break through was actually the Dean of Mount Taishan and the Guardian Elder. These two peerless geniuses of the Earth realm, with their rich experience, forced their way into the Heavenly Venerate level. Then came Zhao Qianjun and Jing Wushou. Yi Fei's proud disciple, Yi Xiaochan, also broke through to the Earthly Venerate level. When Yi Xiaochan, who had also embarked on the path of despair, broke through to the Earthly Venerate level, the momentum was extremely great. Endless lightning almost drowned the entire Black Rock Peak. While many people were complaining incessantly, Lin Chun and Lin Gui had an ingenious idea. With the help of the terrifying heavenly lightning, they actually managed to cultivate the Divine 5 Thunder Clock. The clock's combat power increased once again. However, such a huge commotion at the Black Rock Peak also spread out. It quickly reached the ears of Gao Sickle, who hated Yi Fei to the core. When he heard that the Black Rock Peak was at the peak of popularity, and that there was even an extremely exaggerated heavenly tribulation of the Earthly Venerate level, Gao Sickle's face was full of disbelief. Chapter 21-26. What did you say? Those people appeared out of thin air? Gao Lian was shocked again. Even the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, who was drinking tea at the side, was shocked. Appeared out of thin air? Could it be the remnants of the Lin family and the Divine Star Academy? Impossible. If it was a long-distance teleportation platform, there would definitely be strong teleportation wave. We did not detect any energy waves from outside Black Rock Peak. Any kind of teleportation would have energy waves. The further the distance, the stronger the energy wave. The people Gao Lian sent to monitor Black Rock Peak were all dominators. If there were teleportation waves, they would not be able to hide it. This time, even the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven could not sit still. He stood up with a solemn face and said, "Sir, there is something strange here. Since there are no teleportation waves and we are monitoring Black Rock Peak closely, could it be that those people at Black Rock Peak appeared out of thin air? Could it be Medicine King Manor sending reinforcements to Black Rock Peak? Gao Lian was a little hesitant. With the help of the Lord of Heaven, Yi Fei had already made Black Rock Peak belong to Medicine King Manor in name. And Medicine King Manor's Baiyun Alliance was Clear Cloud Pavilion's biggest opponent. It was not impossible for Baiyun Alliance to send reinforcements to support Yi Fei in order to discuss Clear Cloud Pavilion. This is easy. We have spies in both Baiyun Alliance and Medicine King Manor. We just need to ask them, and we will know the origin of these people. As the largest power in Baiyun Nation, Clear Cloud Pavilion could not destroy Baiyun Alliance due to certain concerns. However, they had planted many spies to monitor Baiyun Alliance's every move. Under the suggestion of the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, Gao Lian quickly returned to his family and used his authority as a direct descendant to contact the spy. In the end, the spy's report shocked Gao Lian. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was equally shocked. "Sir, what did you say? Medicine King Manor and Baiyun Alliance did not send anyone to Black Rock Peak. Is this news accurate?" "It is absolutely true. Originally, the Medicine Manor wanted to send people to take back Black Rock Peak, but under the persuasion of the Lord of Heaven, the Medicine Manor gave up. The spy I contacted this time has a very special identity. He doesn't have the guts to lie to me." Gao Lian's expression was very gloomy. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven also fell into deep thought. Those hundreds of people on the Black Rock Peak couldn't have appeared out of thin air. Since they didn't come from the outside and weren't sent by the Baiyun Alliance, they could only come out from one place, the Paradise World. "What? Grotto Heaven World? Iron Arms, what nonsense are you spouting? That Grotto Heaven World is a land of death. Our Clear Cloud Pavilion has investigated it a long time ago." Gao Ying shook his head. Iron Hands was also a little hesitant, but he was the Lord of Heaven after all. His knowledge was not something that Gao Yu could compare to. Soon, Iron Hands thought of another possibility, and he could not help but feel enlightened. It doesn't matter if those people came from the Paradise World or not. But don't you think there's something wrong with that Black Rock Mountain? Based on past experience, once a mountain is covered in black fog, it will take at most 3 months for the entire mountain to be completely devoured by the Paradise World. But now it's almost dark. How long has it been since the dark fog appeared? "Young Master, the dark fog appeared 4 months ago. At that time, the Medicine King Manor immediately abandoned the mountain and retreated. In the same month, Yi Fei and the others fled into the Baiyun Nation and occupied that mountain peak, renaming it Black Rock Peak. It has been 3 months since then. This time, the one who answered was ordered to monitor Black Rock Peak. The ruler of Black Rock Peak." His words made Gao Ying's eyes widen in shock. "It's been 4 months, but that mountain peak hasn't been swallowed by the darkness. How is that possible? One had to know that when the dark fog appeared in the Baiyun Nation in the past, the mountain peak was swallowed within 3 months. Gao Ying had also clearly noticed the abnormality of Black Rock Peak. The Iron Hand Heaven Monarch became even more excited. "Young Master, there is a possibility. What if the Grotto Heaven World with the dark fog isn't the previous Grotto Heaven World, but a new one? Black Rock Peak can't just appear out of thin air. Since they didn't teleport in, it can't be that they're from the Medicine King Manor. If they are the reinforcements from the Medicine Manor, then the biggest possibility is that they came from the heavenly abode. Not all Grotto Heaven worlds were dead lands. Some Grotto Heaven worlds had alien races and even fleeing humans living in them. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's speculation also made Gao Ying very suspicious. Could it be that in our Baiyun Nation, there aren't just one Paradise World, but 2? If that's the case, why hasn't our Clear Cloud Pavilion discovered it? It's not that we haven't discovered it, young master. I suspect that we might have confused the new Paradise World with the previous one. Young master, do you still remember what happened at Blood Wolf Peak? Back then, after the Lord of Heaven protected Yi Fei, he immediately rushed to Black Rock Peak. Back then, he used the excuse of investigating the Enlightenment Stone as an excuse. From the looks of it, what he was investigating wasn't the Enlightenment Stone, but the new Paradise World. At this point, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was already walking around excitedly. A look of greed and surprise flashed across Gao Ying's eyes. A new Paradise World, one that seemed habitable, would definitely cause a sensation in the entire Baiyun nation. Moreover, in such a grotto heaven world, one would usually find many unexpected treasures. Boom! Gao Ying's entire body erupted with a shocking wave of celestial qi at this moment. Yi Fei also didn't know that the development of Black Rock Peak had attracted Gao Ying's attention. Because of this, they had discovered the secret of the Paradise World. After returning to the Paradise World, other than waiting for Xiao Chao to complete the inheritance, Yi Fei also began to make the best use of his time to improve his cultivation. Due to the special nature of the 9 Revolutions Divine Star Art, Yi Fei needed to improve 3 different types of second-level laws in order to advance his strength from early-stage Sovereign to mid-stage Sovereign. If he wanted to break through to late-stage Sovereign, he would need 6 types of second-level laws. To complete Sovereign, he would need 9 types of second-level laws. Then, 9 types of second-level laws would be combined into one to evolve a bridge that belonged solely to him. He would then be able to ascend to the position of the Lord of Heaven. This process was undoubtedly time-consuming. For example, Jiang Zhen was a late-stage Sovereign Realm expert, but he had only grasped 6 types of second-order laws. If he wanted to grasp 9 types of second-order laws, he would need at least several years, or even longer. Senior Zhang's comprehension of laws is slow. Other than his poor perception, the Divine Star Academy's lack of celestial veins is also an inevitable reason. My perception isn't a problem, but I don't have many celestial veins. Not only do I need celestial veins to improve my laws, but I also don't have the 100,000 celestial veins required to cultivate the 3rd level of the golden body of laws. There's no way to obtain them. Chapter 21-27. For example, there's no need for me to keep the most basic 5 elemental laws. These laws are too basic. Even if I raise them to the 2nd level, it will be very difficult for me to find a corresponding ruler's ability to cultivate. A ruler's ability required a corresponding law in order to unleash its full power. For example, the Divine 5 Lightning Clock required the Law of Lightning or a slightly weaker Law of Lightning to cultivate. Jiang Zhen had mastered the Law of Lightning. Therefore, Jiang Zhen's Divine 5 Lightning Clock couldn't be as violent as Yi Fei's. It could only form a clock world made of lightning. It was also for this reason that Yi Fei decided to give up on the many basic laws that he had comprehended and focus on the more powerful laws. The Law of the Sword is also a basic law. It's no longer suitable for my current level. If I want to master a stronger sword path ability, I need a stronger Law of the Sword. However, what law should I choose to use as the core of my sword path? Yi Fei sat cross-legged on the steps and fell into a long period of contemplation. However, even as he pondered, he continued to circulate his dark force to refine the dragon's strength pill in his hand. This pill was the strengthening of the Shunli pill. It was very suitable for a ruler or Lord of Heaven to increase the strength of the physical body. Most of the divine power of the Lord of Heaven came from the dragon's strength pill. Therefore, when the Lord of Heaven returned to the Medicine Master Manor, Yi Fei asked the Lord of Heaven to bring back many dragon strength pills for him to absorb and refine. As he continued to refine the dragon strength pills, Yi Fei could clearly feel that the divine power in his body had already broken through the 200,000 caddies limit of a ruler. It looked like he was about to enter the 300,000 caddies level that only the Lord of Heaven could reach. When one's divine power reached 150,000 kilograms, it would be equivalent to an ordinary Lord of Heaven's divine power. For example, Guo, the Lord of Heaven, cultivated both divine power and mystic energy. He would be able to use both physical divine power and martial arts divine power at the same time. The two complemented each other and his battle prowess would multiply. When he thought of this, Yi Fei was even more determined to advance his corporeal body sacred art and martial arts sacred art simultaneously. While he was cultivating his corporeal body, he was also comprehending martial arts. While he was comprehending martial arts, he was also tempering his corporeal body. Finally, after the dragon's strength elixir raised his divine power to the limit of 300,000, Yi Fei decided on the second nomological law he wanted to improve. That was the decimation nomological law. This was a very common and powerful law. 9 out of 10 martial artists would choose the law of slaughter in the end. Most martial artists' comprehension of the decimation nomological law would stop at the first level and be unable to progress further. This is because they are not perceptive enough. They only know how to use the decimation nomological law, but it is very difficult for them to comprehend the true essence of the decimation nomological law. However, I am different. I have the undying sword soul, which can infinitely increase my perceptivity. In other words, as long as I am willing, there is no law in this world that I cannot comprehend. It is only a matter of time. A look of determination flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. His sword was the decimation nomological law. After discarding the basic law of the sword, the decimation nomological law was without a doubt the most suitable second-level law for him. In the following time, Yi Fei waited for Xiao Chao in the Grotto Heaven world. At the same time, he activated the undying sword soul and sank into a deep comprehension of the decimation nomological law. Time passed like this day by day. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fei had been in the Baiyu Nation for 5 months. In these 5 months, the Black Rock Peak had developed rapidly. Lin Tianjiao, Luo Shi, and Xia Jun had all broken through to the earthly venerate realm. Little Fatty Pang Bei had caught up with them and even stepped into the heavenly venerate realm. There were very few people. The one who was most shocked was Soaring Snake. After Little Fatty had broken through to the heavenly venerate level, Soaring Snake could sense that Little Fatty was not human at all. He was more like a terrifying demonic beast in human skin. Every time he looked at Little Fatty, Soaring Snake could feel a stifling pressure coming from his soul. This caused the Soaring Serpent to feel both puzzled and uncomfortable. In the end, he was the Serpentine King who had nearly broken through to become a Tao Lord. Logically speaking, as a half-step Tao Lord, there was no reason for him to fear an Empyrean. To dispel this unpleasantness, Soaring Snake quickly thought of a good idea, which was to send Little Fatty down the mountain. After all, there were many people in the Black Rock Peak and resources were limited. The best way to quickly improve their strength was to purchase large amounts of elixirs. Even with the Lord of Heaven acting as the middleman, the Medicine Manor would not provide these elixirs for free. Black Rock Peak still had to spend magnetite to purchase them. Thus, after adapting to the Heaven Realm for a month, the Black Rock Peak's first purchase of elixirs began. This time, Lin Gui was supposed to go down the mountain alone, but he couldn't stand the flying serpent's mischief. Little Fatty also clamored to follow. Helpless, Lin Gui could only bring Little Fatty along. The two of them went down the mountain together and headed for the elixirs. They went to the mountain where the Medicine Manor was located to purchase elixirs. However, Lin Gui did not reach the Medicine Manor this time. Halfway there, Lin Gui suddenly felt that something was wrong. The surroundings were too quiet. There was not even a bird chirping. Something's wrong. Little Fatty, don't run around. Let's use our divine senses to investigate the situation first, Lin Gui said with the demeanor of a general. At this time, he had completely treated Little Fatty as a burden. Pang Bei did not explain. He only smiled and said, "Big Brother Lin, there's no need to use your divine senses. I can smell such a strong sense of hostility. The ones ambushing us are a group of dominators. Not good, there's even the Lord of Heaven. Big Brother Lin, you hold on for a while. I'll go get reinforcements." Roar. As he spoke, Pang Bei's body suddenly expanded. He turned from a human into a terrifying violent ape. That violent ape's speed was also very terrifying. He took to his heels and sprinted in the direction of the Black Rock Peak. His reaction was at least twice as fast as Lin Gui's. This little fatty, he can even transform. Then why didn't he take me with him? Little fatty, no, Brother Pang, wait for me. Lin Gui's expression changed. As Pang Bei suddenly transformed and ran for his life, more than 10 Dominator Realm experts rushed out of the quiet space and surrounded Lin Gui. They surrounded him. "You're from the Clear Cloud Pavilion." Lin Gui was incomparably shocked as he looked at the Dominators surrounding him and the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven standing behind them. Soon after, Lin Gui was surrounded by a storm of Dominators. Even though he had already cultivated the 9 Revolutions Divine Star Art, he was still no match for these people. This was because the ones attacking him this time were all late-stage Dominator elite. This ambush had clearly been planned for a long time. As the other Dominators surrounded Lin Gui, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven waved his hand and released the terrifying might of the Lord of Heaven. He grabbed at the fleeing violent ape. If it were any other heavenly venerate facing the pressure of the Lord of Heaven, they would have been suppressed to the point of being unable to move. However, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was shocked. What was even more shocking was that the violent ape didn't seem to feel the terrifying pressure he released, and it even ran faster and faster. Seeing that Pang Bei was about to escape the range of the Lord of Heaven's divine ability, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was finally enraged. "Evil creature, you puny heavenly venerate, do you think you can escape from the palm of the Lord of Heaven? Stay." Boom. Chapter 21-28. But soon, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven saw a scene that shocked him. Just as his Lord of Heaven's divine ability was about to hit Pang Bei, the crazily running giant ape suddenly pounded its chest and roared. Its body rapidly shrank, and it quickly turned from a giant ape into a fat and round devil monkey. Even the bright red monkey but behind it was extremely lifelike. At the same time, the fat monkey let out Pang Bei's dissatisfied grumbles. "This is too much of a bully. In the past, Big Sister Shangluo wanted me to turn into a monkey every day to steal monkey wine for her. Now, this Lord of Heaven is forcing me to turn into a monkey to escape. Uncle, just you wait. This fatty can't beat you, but my brother will definitely beat you to death." Squeak squeak. The devil monkey had a round body, but it ran faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had rushed into a forest not far away. Immediately, countless devil monkeys poked their heads out of the forest and looked curiously at their strange fellow that was being chased. Outside the forest, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven roared furiously. Even if you beat the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven to death, he would never have thought that there would be such a strange technique in this world. It actually allowed one to transform into a beast at will. This also caused a major hidden danger to his originally assured ambush. The dozen or so Clear Cloud Pavilion experts who had captured Lin Gui also became nervous. After all, Blackrock Peak was now nominally under the Medicine King Manor. If the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's operation this time succeeded, it would be fine. But if it failed, it would be seen as the Clear Cloud Pavilion targeting the Medicine King Manor. Minor sovereigns like them wouldn't be able to bear such a consequence. "Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, what should we do? Should we chase after that little fatty and kill him?" Someone suggested. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's reply was a resounding slap, causing the person who spoke to spit out broken teeth. "You pigs, who told you to only attack Lin Gui? If you had split up a few people to stop him, I would have captured and killed him long ago." The ruler who was slapped looked aggrieved. They also wanted to split up a few people to stop Pang Bei, but that fatty was too alert. When he realized that the situation was not right, he immediately ran away. Of course, this was also the danger premonition that Pang Bei had developed from being chased by the devil monkeys for many years. It was also this premonition that allowed Pang Bei to rush out of the ambush ahead of time. Even the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven could not react. In the end, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven could only capture Lin Gui as soon as possible and hand him to Gao Sickle to interrogate him personally. At the same time, within the Paradise World, Yi Fei had also reached the most critical juncture in raising his law of massacre. Boundless profound qi converged from the celestial qi into his body. This was another benefit of the celestial qi. Although the celestial qi and Xian meridians could not be produced in the celestial qi, it could absorb the celestial qi and even the laws of heaven and earth into the celestial qi. This was because even if Yi Fei did not have Xian meridians, he could use the large amount of Xian qi stored in the celestial qi to quickly comprehend and cultivate. As a large amount of Xian qi was absorbed and refined, a powerful aura of laws finally appeared on Yi Fei's body. This was the aura of the celestial qi, and it was the second level of the celestial qi. Boom! The moment he mastered the second level of the celestial qi, a killing aura immediately appeared on Yi Fei's fate wheel. It was like a cold divine moon that hung above his celestial palace. But before Yi Fei could carefully sense the changes in his celestial palace fate wheel, his telepathic mirror suddenly rang. Peak Master, something big has happened. Lin Gui has been captured, and Lin Chen is clamoring to go down the mountain to save him. What? Lin Gui has been captured. There is still a month before the half-year deadline. I have already asked the Lord of Heaven for help to make the Black Rock Peak submit to the Medicine Manor. Why is the Clear Cloud Pavilion suddenly making a move at this time? Yi Fei's expression also became serious. He instructed the dragon turtle to guard Xiao Qiao. Yi Fei immediately rushed up the teleportation platform and returned to the Black Rock Peak at the fastest speed. At this moment, the Black Rock Peak was indeed in a mess. Due to the sudden attack from the Clear Cloud Pavilion, Lin Chen was worried that the Clear Cloud Pavilion's ambush would fail and they would kill Lin Gui to silence him. At this moment, he was making a big fuss and wanted to go down the mountain to save Lin Gui. It was only when Yi Fei appeared that the entire Black Rock Peak quieted down. Lin Chen's eyes were also red as he looked at Yi Fei and said, "Peak Master, Lin Gui and I are the only remaining bloodline of the Lin clan. Now that Lin Gui is in trouble, I can't not save him. Don't worry, I swear that I will never reveal any information about the Black Rock Peak." Obviously, with the large number of warriors from the Earth realm appearing at the Black Rock Peak, each of them with an extraordinary bearing and powerful talent, even if Lin Chen and Lin Gui were slow, they obviously felt that something was wrong. But they were both smart people and did not say anything. Until this time, when Lin Gui was captured, Lin Chen finally could not help but explode. In response to Lin Chen's outburst, the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor sneered, "It is precisely because Lin Gui has been captured that you can't go to your death. If you die, the Lin clan will really be finished. Do you want me to leave him in the lurch?" A murderous aura suddenly appeared on Lin Chen's body as he stared at Yi Fei with bright eyes. Yi Fei could not help but sigh. He knew that if this matter was not handled properly, even if Lin Chen stayed in the end, he would be at odds with the Black Rock Peak. Forget it. After all, we are people who have gone through thick and thin together. Lin Gui is also a member of the Black Rock Peak. Now that Lin Gui is in trouble, whether it is for public or private reasons, we must save him. Yi Fei said in a low voice, finally making a decision. "Thank you," Lin Chen said gratefully as he cupped his hands towards Yi Fei. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor suddenly transmitted a message to Yi Fei. "Emperor Yi, you have to consider carefully. Our existence is very likely to have attracted the attention of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. If they are smart enough, they may even think that something is wrong with the Paradise World because of this. This time, Lin Gui and Pang Bei were ambushed. It is possible that this is a test by the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Once we take action, there is a great risk that the secret of the Black Rock Peak will be completely exposed. No, it is precisely because the Clear Cloud Pavilion has already taken action that we must save Lin Gui. Otherwise, if Lin Gui can't take it anymore and says something, or if the Clear Cloud Pavilion finds something when they search his soul, we will be in even more danger. Therefore, we must save Lin Gui before he is tortured. Before the Clear Cloud Pavilion interrogates him. Yi Fei's expression was very grave. Seeing that Yi Fei had made up his mind, the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor also sighed and nodded helplessly. Since Peak Master has made up his mind, we will not object. Then this time, how do you plan to save him? How else can we save him? Of course, we will go directly to the Clear Cloud City and ask Gao Lian for him, Yi Fei said in a low voice. Chapter 21-29. Senior Skylaw, you and the Alliance Master will stay behind to clean up the mess. At the same time, get Meng Shi and Lord of Heaven Gua to meet me outside Qinyan City. Yi Fei instructed in a low voice. Meng Shi and Gua Tianjun were not on the mountain at the moment. Instead, they had entered the dark fog together, concentrating on their cultivation. While Meng Shi was on the way, Yi Fei summoned Gong Zhu and activated his sorcery to search for Lin Gui's exact whereabouts. Although sorcery was not as powerful as supernatural powers in the Heaven Realm, it was still useful. For example, it was very convenient to use sorcery to search for someone. Moreover, in the Earth Realm, they were suppressed by the fake heavenly axiom. Other than people like Yi Fei who were abandoned by the heavens, others could only cultivate their spirits and divine treasures. However, in the Heaven Realm they could cultivate both. Sorcerer gods like Gong Zhu had already cultivated their spirits to a certain extent. This greatly increased the power of Gong Zhu's sorcery. Through the strangeness of his sorcery, Gong Zhu quickly determined Lin Gui's location. Peak Master, we have used our sorcery to capture Lin Gui's aura. Follow this aura and you will be able to find Lin Gui. Gong Zhu handed a straw doll to Yi Fei. The straw doll was filled with sorcerer race runes, and there were even fragments of Lin Gui's clothes tied to it. The straw doll held the fragments and suddenly pointed in the direction of Qinyan City. Yi Fei's eyes flashed coldly. Iron Hand Lord of Heaven had captured Lin Gui, but did not hide him for interrogation. Instead, he swaggered back to Qinyan City. Clearly, he did not care about the Black Rock Peak. Gowing, if I don't show you my power, you really think I'm a sick cat. The rest of you stay here. Lin Chen, let's go. Leaving behind Jiang Zhen, the strongest dominator, Yi Fei led Lin Chen and stepped onto the teleportation platform. Soon, they arrived at Qinyan City. Following the straw doll's directions, they quickly arrived at a luxurious restaurant. Qinyan Restaurant. Just by looking at the name, one could tell that this was the property of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. As the most powerful force in the Baiyun Nation, the Clear Cloud Pavilion was the undisputed king. Naturally, no one dared to cause trouble here. Hence, the Clear Cloud Restaurant was always filled to the brim every day. Tall Sickle also liked this place the most, drinking and seeking pleasure. When the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven captured Lin Gui, he brought him here directly for Tall Sickle to interrogate. Peak Lord, Lin Gui must be locked in here. What should we do? Lin Chen was slightly nervous because there were a dozen late-stage sovereigns standing in a row outside the restaurant. Their expressions were cold, and there was even a hint of disdain and mockery in their eyes as they looked at Yi Fei. Lin Chen. Obviously, after Pang Bei turned into a little monkey and ran away, Gao Sickle had also made some necessary preparations. The defenses of Qinyan Restaurant had also been greatly strengthened. If it had been a month ago, Yi Fei would not have had much confidence that he would have been able to break in if Gao Sickle had made such a move. But now, seeing those late-stage sovereigns, Yi Fei's face only showed a cold smile. He did not say anything. He just strode toward the Clear Cloud restaurant. This surprised the group of sovereigns who were guarding outside. Of course, they also recognized Yi Fei's identity. They immediately scolded him disdainfully, "Scram! This is not a place for you to come." Boom! What answered them was Yi Fei's heavy black iron sword. Not only was this sword a 4th-level divine material, but its weight was also extremely shocking. At this time, combined with Yi Fei's terrifying 300,000 caddies of divine strength, the power of this sword was already comparable to a physical mystique of the Lord of Heaven's realm. How many? With a few loud bangs, several late-stage sovereigns were smashed to the point where they coughed up blood. Their bodies were sent flying, and several human-shaped craters were left in the tavern. The entire restaurant was instantly in an uproar. Who is this? How dare he cause trouble in the Clear Cloud restaurant? Doesn't he know that this is the property of the Clear Cloud Pavilion? I know him. He is Yi Fei, the leader of the small 4-man force that once destroyed the Blood Wolf Gang. Someone recognized Yi Fei's identity. After all, back at the Clear Cloud Chamber of Commerce, Yi Fei had made a huge bet with the Blood Wolf Gang. In the end, he actually relied on the 4 of them to destroy the Blood Wolf Gang. This matter attracted the attention of many forces. Lin Chen's expression was a little gloomy. It turned out that before Yi Fei reorganized his forces, the other forces had already regarded Yi Fei as their leader. Yi Fei, you are too presumptuous. How dare you disrespect the Clear Cloud Pavilion in the Bayou Nation? Capture him and skin him. Take his skin. The other Clear Cloud Pavilion sovereigns reacted quickly. When they saw Yi Fei make a move, they all exploded with killing intent and quickly surrounded Yi Fei. All kinds of sovereigns' mystiques blasted forward like chaotic light pillars. Scram! Gao Sickle, get out here! Boom! The heavy sword was raised again, flashing with a shocking cold light. It slashed the air, and caused the entire Clear Cloud restaurant to shake violently. Yi Fei released all his terrifying divine power. In the eyes of the crowd, Yi Fei was no longer swinging a sword, but an extremely heavy black iron heavy mountain. Even late-stage sovereigns were no match for Yi Fei. They were all sent flying like meteors. Soon, more than a dozen human-shaped holes appeared on the walls of the Clear Cloud restaurant. How is this possible? How long has it been? He has become even stronger. The commotion outside finally alerted Gao Sickle, who was interrogating Lin Gui in the secret chamber. His hands were covered in blood as he rushed out of the secret chamber. In the end, he saw his subordinates all being chopped up like vegetables. They were all seriously injured and sent flying backward. When he saw Gao Sickle appear, Yi Fei's hands were still covered in blood. Suddenly, a terrifying murderous aura erupted from his body. He suddenly swung the black iron heavy sword forcefully. Under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, the sword was pointed at Gao Sickle's throat. Gao Sickle, hand over Lin Gui and I will spare your life. Boom! Yi Fei's words caused an uproar among the crowd. No one expected Yi Fei to be so crazy. Not only did he destroy the restaurant belonging to the Clear Cloud Pavilion, he even pointed his sword at Gao Sickle and pointed it at a direct descendant of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Gao Yan's expression instantly turned extremely ugly. A cold glint flashed across his eyes, but his status as a disciple of the Gao family caused him to straighten his back as he said coldly, "Impudent! Who do you think you are to speak to me like that? That Lin Gui was disrespectful to me, and I have already killed him. What can you do? This is Clear Cloud City, the territory of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. If you dare touch a single hair on my head, I will make sure you won't be able to walk out of Clear Cloud City alive." Sword light flashed and the heavy sword roared. Chapter 2130. Only then did Gao Ying realize in horror that Yi Fei was actually serious. He barged into Azure Cloud Restaurant and ignored the dignity of Azure Cloud Pavilion. He even dared to point his sword at me and threaten me with death. Lowly peasant, who gave you the guts? Who allowed a lowly peasant like you to stand in front of me? Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, kill him for me! Boom! Gao Ying was thoroughly enraged. He had always been high and mighty. In the Baiyu nation, his status was akin to that of a prince. He had always been the one looking down on the world, but now Yi Fei was actually using the attitude of looking down on him and pointing his sword at him. Gao Ying could not tolerate it. He could not tolerate it. Since he had already broken the rules, the tyrannical him might as well shatter them completely. After all, he had already discovered that there was a second grotto heaven on Black Rock Peak. Now all he had to do was capture Lin Gui and interrogate him for specific information about that grotto heaven. Then, he would be the greatest contributor. Not only would the family not punish him, but they would also reward him handsomely. This was the reason why Gao Ying dared to break the rules and interrogate Lin Gui. It was also the reason why he dared to order the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven to attack Yi Fei directly. Upon hearing Gao Ying's order, a terrifying aura of the Lord of Heaven suddenly appeared in the restaurant. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, draped in a scarlet cloak, exuded a murderous aura as he walked out of the restaurant step by step. Yi Fei, you little rat, you're finally willing to come out. Last time, the Lord of Heaven Gua protected you. I can't attack you, but now that the Lord of Heaven Gua isn't here, I'll skin you alive and pull out your tendons. Staring at Yi Fei, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's face was filled with rage. He could have killed Yi Fei on the spot back at Blood Wolf Peak, but because of the Lord of Heaven Gua's appearance, all his efforts had been for naught. This time, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven would definitely not give Yi Fei a chance to live. How is skinning and pulling out tendons enough? Iron Hand, break this person's legs first. A lowly peasant like him has no right to stand and talk to me. In front of me, he can only kneel. Gao Ying crossed his arms and assumed the posture of a high and mighty prince. Capturing Lin Gui would not make Gao Lian feel that he had accomplished much. Only by capturing Yi Fei, the leader, would Gao Lian feel better. Boom! At this moment, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven also suddenly attacked. Behind him, a pair of terrifying azure rock wings appeared. These wings were as large as azure clouds and turned into feather spirits that were even more terrifying than swords and sabers. Not only did they want to sever Yi Fei's legs, they also wanted to force Yi Fei to kneel in front of everyone in humiliation. Many warriors who saw this scene were so frightened that their faces turned pale. They secretly lamented that Yi Fei was still too young and too impulsive. A mere ruler dares to face the Lord of Heaven? Just the two of them dare to face the clear cloud pavilion at its peak. How unwise, how foolish! Iron Arms, you're too arrogant! Just as the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was about to attack, a cold snort suddenly came from the crowd in the distance. Then, they saw the Lord of Heaven Gua, who was wearing a high crown and wide belt, suddenly step forward. Both of his hands struck out continuously, blocking the azure rock wings and engaging in a fierce battle with the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. Lord of Heaven Gua, you really can't help but attack. I knew it. There must be something wrong with you protecting Yi Fei. Don't think that I don't know what the Medicine King Manor is planning. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was not surprised by the appearance of the Lord of Heaven Gua. He only subconsciously thought that the Lord of Heaven Gua did not want the secret of the new paradise world to be revealed at Black Rock Peak. Therefore, he had been protecting Yi Fei. Regarding this, Gao Ying sneered. If not for the fact that the Lord of Heaven Gua was guarding Black Rock Peak all day, he would have already led his men to attack Black Rock Peak. Fortunately, it was not too late to act now. As long as he captured Yi Fei and interrogated him about the value of the Paradise World, Clear Cloud Pavilion would still protect him to the end. If the value of the Paradise World was high enough, Clear Cloud Pavilion and Bayun Alliance might even go to war. Yi Fei, I have to say that a lowly commoner like you is really lucky to be able to receive the help of the Lord of Heaven Gua twice in a row. But do you think that you can go against me just by relying on the Lord of Heaven Gua? A lowly commoner will always be a lowly commoner. In front of me, you can only kneel. Gao Ying's expression was cold. He did not even bother to look at Yi Fei. He only raised his head and looked playfully at the two Lord of Heaven battling in the sky. Yi Fei's lips also curled into a smile. He dragged his heavy sword. The heavy blade scraped against the ground, creating a string of terrifying sparks. Just like that, he dragged his heavy sword and strode forward. He walked into the restaurant and towards Gao Ying. Impudent, get out! According to Gao Ying's orders, kneel on the ground now. Inside the restaurant, a terrifying aura of the Lord of Heaven suddenly erupted once again. Gao Shin, the High Lord of Heaven. Boom! The hearts of the warriors inside and outside the restaurant trembled once again. The Lord of Heaven had always been high and mighty. But in order to deal with Yi Fei, Clear Cloud Pavilion had actually sent out two Lords of Heaven at once. What is it that made Clear Cloud Pavilion break the rules and target a small 6th-grade organization like this? Many of the leaders of the organizations were bewildered. They felt that a storm was coming. As for Yi Fei, he was still as calm as ever. He ignored the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven and the High Lord of Heaven who had appeared. His gaze only stared coldly at Gao Ying. A lowly commoner? Putting aside the Gao family's outer appearance, in front of stronger warriors, you are just an ant, a lowly commoner. What do you have? What pride do you have? What do you have to be noble? Lin Gui's death had completely enraged Yi Fei. Now, he wanted to shatter Gao Ying's pride and destroy Gao Ying's nobility. In front of countless warriors, and in front of the two Lords of Heaven, Iron Hand and Gao Shin. Looking at Yi Fei's murderous gaze, Gao Ying's breathing suddenly became hurried. A ferocious and furious expression flashed across his face. Third uncle, help me kill him! Die! Yi Fei's disregard had completely enraged the High Lord of Heaven. He spread out his 5 fingers and formed a terrifying green cloud that blasted towards Yi Fei. The Lord of Heaven's remarkable ability, Green Cloud Palm. Someone exclaimed, recognizing the origin of this remarkable ability. This was the Lord of Heaven's remarkable ability that old man Qin Yun had created himself. Its power was extremely terrifying. However, in the face of this terrifying clear sky palm, Yi Fei actually didn't even look at it. He continued to drag his sword and walked towards the scythe. Behind him, there was an additional skinny and malicious old man who hissed, I, your ancestor, have been stifled for too long. Today, I can finally let go of my hands and feet and kill. Boom! Meng Shi's body suddenly erupted with a terrifying murderous intent. When he thought of how he, the mighty Serpent King, had finally broken through to become a Tao Lord, only to be ambushed by the West Qin imperial family, flames of fury burned on his body. Chapter 21:31. Bam! The light from the soaring serpent's eyes collided with the emerald cloud palm like 2 giant lanterns, causing the air to tremble. The venomous serpent's eyes actually condensed into a solid beam of light that blasted a huge hole in the emerald cloud palm created by the High Lord of Heaven. Behind the hole was the pale face of the High Lord of Heaven. A half-step Tao Lord. You're a half-step Tao Lord. This was a terrifying expert who was only half a step away from the Tao Lord level. He was even more terrifying than the average Lord of Heaven. Gao Shen had never seen such a person in the Medicine King Manor or the Bayun Alliance. In other words, the half-step Tao Lord who attacked was an expert who had just entered the Bayun Nation. Moreover, such an expert was standing behind Yi Fei. I see. This person is the true leader of Blackrock Peak. I was wondering how the 4 of them could destroy the Blood Wolf Gang. It turns out that Blackrock Peak was hiding a half-step Tao Lord. Many of the leaders of the factions were enlightened. They were wondering why a mere sovereign like Yi Fei would dare to cause trouble in the Emerald Cloud restaurant. It turned out that he had the backing of a half-step Tao Lord. Gao Shen looked at the High Lord of Heaven, who was being beaten back by the soaring serpent, and then at the Lord of Heaven, who was locked in a fierce battle with the Lord of Heaven, who had the upper hand. A hint of shock flashed across Gao Shen's cold and arrogant expression. His greatest reliance against Yi Fei was the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven and the High Lord of Heaven, the two Lord of Heaven level experts. But now, there were two Lord of Heaven standing behind Yi Fei. One of them was even close to becoming a Tao Lord. This was like an invisible slap to Gao Shen's face. Gao Ying, the only person you can rely on is the Lord of Heaven. Without the Lord of Heaven, you are nothing. Since you killed Lin Gui, I'll kill you to pay for Lin Gui's death. The low roar caused the surrounding martial practitioners to cry out in shock. Countless people withdrew their gazes from the Lord of Heaven and looked at Yi Fei and the profound iron heavy sword that Yi Fei was waving. This heavy sword was as heavy as a mountain. It whistled as it smashed out, causing the space to explode and the entire Green Cloud restaurant to shake violently. Amidst this shaking, Gao Sickle let out a furious roar. In the end, he was the young master of the Clear Cloud Pavilion, a powerful dominator expert. How could he be willing to be captured without putting up a fight? Enormous green rock wings unfurled from Gao Sickle's back. At this moment, it was as if Gao Sickle had transformed into a rock. The heavens could not stop him, nor could the earth stop him. Feather Spirit turned into 1,000 blades and 10,000 swords. They were densely packed and slashed apart heaven and earth. Boom! But just as Gao Sickle's green rock evolved to its limit, a terrifying sword beam suddenly appeared between heaven and earth. That sword beam carried with it a rumbling aura of thunder and slaughter. It sliced apart all the blades and swords, as well as the wings that soared into the sky. It also caused Gao Sickle to fall from the sky like a kite with a broken string. He fell to the ground and was heavily smashed into the ground by a heavy sword. In the end, only half of Gao Sickle's body remained on the ground. The lower half of his body had been smashed into the ground, and he could no longer climb out. Gao Sickle had been completely defeated. He could not even withstand a single strike from Yi Fei. This was not because Gao Sickle was too weak, but because Yi Fei's sword was too strong. Gao Sickle, who had been smashed into the ground, instantly flushed red. Humiliation, anger, and madness flashed across his face. One step to the heavens! Gao Sickle roared. The mystic energy in his body suddenly surged wildly like clouds. He wanted to pull his body out of the ground and fight Yi Fei to the end. Divine Five Thunders Clock. A cold glint flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. Although he once had a grudge with Lin Gui, they had gone through thick and thin together in the Baiyun Nation. They had long put aside their grudges and become friends. As for Gao Sickle, he had killed Lin Gui. Then, all he could do was kill Gao Sickle and avenge Lin Gui. Brother Lin, you will not be lonely on the road to the Netherworld. Now, I will send Gao Sickle down to accompany you. Stop, Yi Fei. If you dare to kill Gao Sickle, the Qingyun Pavilion will not rest until you are dead. Your entire Black Rock Peak will be buried with Gao Sickle. The angry roar of the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven came from afar. Although Gao Sickle was a good-for-nothing, he was a direct descendant of the Gao family. Moreover, he was the grandson of Lord Qingyun. If Gao Sickle was killed, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven would not be able to escape the sin of dereliction of duty. Suddenly, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven abandoned Gur and charged toward Yi Fei. If Yi Fei insisted on killing Gao Sickle, then he might very well be killed by the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. A look of ecstasy flashed across Gao Sickle's face. "Ha, Yi Fei, you can't kill me! Kill!" The heavy black iron sword came crashing down. Without any hesitation, it shattered Gao Sickle's Qingyun defense and slashed at Gao Sickle's body. However, Gao Sickle was not killed because of this. At the critical moment, a jade token with spirit flew out from his neck and blocked the heavy sword. At this moment, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven had already charged behind Yi Fei. He was less than 100 meters away. However, Yi Fei's expression was still determined. Since his first strike had failed, he immediately swung his second strike. He wanted to kill Gao Sickle once and for all. Soaring Serpent, hurry up and use your full strength. Yi Fei shouted without turning his head. However, this made the Soaring Serpent's heart tremble. Then, with a loud roar, the Soaring Serpent's body suddenly split into two. From a half-step Tao Lord, it turned into two ordinary Lord of Heaven. One entangled the High Lord of Heaven, while the other quickly entangled the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. This scene once again shocked and caused an uproar among countless warriors. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven was caught off guard by the Soaring Serpent's cloning ability. While the Soaring Serpent was entangled with the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, Yi Fei's second strike came crashing down. The heavy black iron sword smashed into the floor of the restaurant, causing it to shake violently. With a loud crack, the jade token with spirit attached to Gao Sickle's neck finally could not withstand the pressure and split into two. Then, the third strike came whistling down towards Gao Sickle's neck. Immediately, a terrifying aura of death completely enveloped Gao Sickle, causing his breathing to become sluggish. His eyes were also filled with fear. He had not expected that Yi Fei would actually dare to attack him. He really dared to kill him in front of so many people. The intense fear made Gao Sickle finally unable to hold back his roar. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Yi Fei, you've won! Lin Gui is not dead. I'll let him go now." Bam! The ground shook violently again, causing countless cracks to appear on the tiles of Qinyun restaurant. Gao Sickle was scared half to death. Yi Fei's blade also stopped the moment it came into contact with Gao Sickle's neck. "You said Lin Gui is not dead. Where is he? Let him go immediately. Let him go." Gao Sickle's face was filled with humiliation, but when he felt Yi Fei's boiling killing intent, his humiliation turned into fear. Just as Yi Fei had expected, Gao Sickle still felt that his life was more precious than the lives of others. Therefore, under the threat of death, Gao Sickle unwillingly gave the order to let Lin Gui go. Lin Chun immediately followed Gao Sickle's entourage and rushed into the secret chamber of Qinyun restaurant. Very quickly, a figure covered in blood was carried out from the secret chamber by Lin Chun. Yi Fei scanned Lin Gui with his consciousness, and a terrifying killing intent emerged from his body once again. Chapter 2132. You actually destroyed my physical body. Kill him for me. Gao was so angry that he was about to go crazy. Although the most important thing for a warrior was the spirit, and as long as the spirit was not destroyed, the warrior would not die, and there was still a chance for possession. However, the body after possession was no longer his, especially Gao Ying's body. There was still a powerful bloodline in his body that had not awakened, and as his physical body collapsed, his bloodline also ceased to exist. How could Gao Ying not be angry? How could he not be mad? Yi Fei did not kill him, but it was even more unbearable than killing him. If you dare to roar again, the sword in my hand will shatter, not your physical body, but your spirit. The black iron heavy sword was raised again in front of everyone, and the sword light on it flickered, as if endless anger was about to erupt. Yi Fei was not so angry for no reason. In the time he had rushed over, Lin Gui had already been severely tortured. The tendons in his arms and legs had all been cut, and his 10 fingers were full of bamboo skewers. The most miserable of all was Lin Gui's spirit. Half of it had been searched by the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, and it was flickering. If he had come a little later, Lin Gui's soul would have been scattered under the torture of the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. Even so, after sensing Yi Fei's spirit, Lin Gui, who was already extremely weak, still gritted his teeth and said with difficulty, "I did not surrender." It was also this sentence that made Yi Fei burn with anger. He raised the black iron heavy sword and slashed the third time. This slash also directly shattered Gao Ying's physical body, leaving him with only a lonely spirit. This slash silenced the entire Qingyun restaurant. Many warriors looked at Yi Fei with fear, but the most terrified was still Gao Ying. He knew that Yi Fei really dared to kill him. If he dared to make any noise at Yi Fei, perhaps that terrifying fourth slash would break. What would be shattered would be his spirit. "Ah, I know who you are. You are the Serpentine King of the West Qin. You are Daolord Mengshi." Gao Shen suddenly let out a shocked roar of rage. When Soaring Serpent used his doppelganger divine ability to simultaneously block the two of them, Gao Shen finally realized the true identity of this sinister-looking old man. This was because Daolord Soaring Serpent's most famous lifeblood divine ability was the ability to create doppelgangers. Moreover, this divine ability allowed one to create more doppelgangers as one's cultivation level increased. Easy to recognize. So that's how it is. I was wondering who it was that dared to behave atrociously in my clear cloud pavilion. So it's fellow Taoist Soaring Snake. Boom. All of a sudden, a terrifying aura filled Green Cloud City as Gua, the Lord of Heaven, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, and Gao Shen fought. Meng Shi's expression changed rapidly. His two bodies merged into one and he regained the cultivation of a half-step Tao Lord. He hurriedly returned the greeting. "So it's Tao Lord Azure Cloud. To think that a fight between a group of juniors would actually alarm a Tao Lord." "What? A Tao Lord? What's going on?" To think that even Tao Lord Azure Cloud would appear in this battle. Countless martial artists were shocked. The entire Green Cloud City was in an uproar when they heard that Old Man Azure Cloud, who had not appeared in public for hundreds of years, had appeared. It was unknown how many people were rushing over. Soon, the outside of the Clear Sky restaurant had become a sea of people. Yi Fei's expression turned ugly. He did not expect that this matter would alarm a Tao Lord expert like Old Man Azure Cloud. An expert like this stood at the top of Green Cloud City. If not for the heavenly Tao Tree, a half-step Divine Lord, standing behind him, Yi Fei would not have had the guts to directly destroy Gao Shen's physical body in Green Cloud City, where a Tao Lord was stationed. He did not know that the Spirit Enhancement Jade pendant on Gao Shen's neck was specially given to Gao Shen by Old Man Azure Cloud to protect his life. When the pendant shattered, Old Man Azure Cloud, who was in seclusion, sensed it and suddenly came out of seclusion to investigate the situation. Gao Shen's followers did not dare to hide anything and hurriedly reported to Yi Fei. They also reported the possible appearance of a new Grotto Heaven world in Blackrock Peak. That was how Old Man Azure Cloud managed to suppress everyone. However, before Old Man Azure Cloud could completely suppress Tao Lord Mengshi, several powerful auras of the Lord of Heaven suddenly appeared outside Green Cloud City. "It's the Lord of Heaven of our Medicine King Manor and the Lord of Heaven of the Baiyun Alliance. Oh no, the Alliance Master is here too." The Lord of Heaven Guo was the first to react. He hurriedly transmitted his voice to Yi Fei and reported the situation. At the same time, he hurriedly turned around and cupped his hands. "Greetings, Medicine King. Rise, Lord of Heaven Guo. You've done well to be able to discover a new Grotto Heaven world in this small Blackrock Peak. Tao Lord Azure Cloud, you came out of seclusion too late. That Grotto Heaven world was discovered by Medicine King Manor first. It already belongs to Medicine King Manor and the Baiyun Alliance." The Medicine King was the same as the Lord of Heaven Guo. He wore a high crown and a wide belt. He was wearing a very formal official robe of the Baiyun nation, indicating that he was a subordinate of the Baiyun Divine Lord. Moreover, the Medicine King's realm was not low either. Like Mengshi, he was a half-step Tao Lord. At the same time, there was not just one Lord of Heaven behind the Medicine King. There were as many as 5 of them. Including the Lord of Heaven Gua, there were 6 Lords of Heaven. Such strength had already surpassed the imperial family of the Sky River. On the other hand, the Green Cloud Pavilion only had 2 Lords of Heaven on the surface, the Lord of Heaven Iron Hand and Gao Shen. However, in terms of numbers, the Baiyun Alliance led by Medicine King Manor had the advantage in numbers. However, in terms of top-level strength, the Green Cloud Pavilion led by Old Man Azure Cloud was still stronger. Therefore, even when he saw the Medicine King appear with so many Heaven Monarch experts, Old Man Qingyun only snorted coldly. He did not back down and suddenly pointed at Gao Yu and said, "This old man's grandson was beaten up to this extent. Even his divine soul was almost destroyed. Shouldn't the Medicine King Manor give this old man an explanation?" Boom! As he spoke, the Tao Lord aura on Old Man Azure Cloud became even more terrifying. That aura caused all the martial artists below the Lord of Heaven to stop breathing. It was as if they had fallen into a terrifying vacuum. At the same time, this aura instantly enveloped Yi Fei, Lin Chen, and the heavily injured Lin Gui. Old Man Azure Cloud seemed to want to use this invisible pressure to crush Yi Fei and the other 2. It could be considered as revenge for his grandson's physical body being destroyed. A cold light flashed in Yi Fei's eyes. However, he did not say anything. He suddenly took out a token. Meng Shi and the Lord of Heaven's expressions changed drastically. They suddenly rushed towards Yi Fei, wanting to help Yi Fei resist the Tao Lord's aura. Confusion flashed in the Medicine King's eyes. He did not understand why the Lord of Heaven and Meng Shi were so anxious to protect Yi Fei. However, Black Rock Peak was still a force that belonged to Medicine King Manor in name. If Yi Fei and the others were killed by Old Man Azure Cloud, Medicine King Manor would lose face. Immediately, the Medicine King snorted coldly. Together with the 5 Lord of Heaven beside him, he unleashed a terrifying aura and said in a low voice, "Tao Lord Azure Cloud, what exactly do you have?" Chapter 2133. The King of Medicine's compromise was within Old Man Qingyun's expectations. The destruction of his grandson's body was not worth his time. However, a brand new Grotto Heaven world was something that even a Tao Lord would be tempted by. Old Man Qingyun raised 2 fingers and said, "2 conditions. Qingyun Pavilion wants 70% of the profits from the Black Rock Peak Grotto Heaven world. The Medicine Manor must hand over the culprit who injured my grandson and let him commit suicide as an apology." The King of Medicine's face darkened. No, 70% is too much. After all, the Medicine Manor was the one who discovered this Grotto Heaven world first. 40% is my limit. As for handing over Yi Fei and committing suicide as an apology, the King of Medicine had no interest in asking. No matter how talented Yi Fei was, if he was not the Lord of Heaven, then he was not worthy of the King of Medicine's attention. At this moment, Yi Fei was completely reduced to a foil in front of a group of powerful heavenly lords and Tao lords. Even Black Rock Peak had become the spoils of war for the Medicine Manor and Clear Cloud Pavilion, let alone his life and death. Lin Chen's face suddenly turned deathly pale. Even though he didn't know what was hidden in the dark fog, he knew that there must be some secret hidden in the Black Rock Peak. There must be some secret hidden in the dark fog. "Brother Yi, it's all our fault." No, even if Lin Gui was not captured, it was only a matter of time before the Black Rock Peak was targeted. Yi Fei shook his head, indicating that Lin Chen should not act rashly. Secretly, he took out the telepathic mirror. He did not say a word and continued to tap on it. No one noticed Yi Fei's actions. At this moment, all the ancient martial art practitioners were shocked by the news of the Baiyun Nation's new Grotto Heaven world. They were also shocked by the conflict between the Qingyun Pavilion and the Medicine Manor. At this moment, no one was paying attention to the grudge between Yi Fei and Gao Lian. Not only was Yi Fei reduced to a supporting role, but so was Gao Lian. 50%, this is my limit, and also Clear Cloud Pavilion's limit. Of course, if the Medicine Manor is willing to hand over the culprit who injured my grandson and let him commit suicide as an apology, I can reduce it by another 10%. Old man Qin Yun's expression was very calm, as if Yi Fei's life and death depended on his words. Hearing this, Yi Fei could not help but feel anger rise in his heart, but he did not say anything. He continued to stand silently behind Meng Shi, as if he was Meng Shi's subordinate. No one knew that Meng Shi was actually his subordinate. Even the king of medicine did not notice. For a half-step Tao Lord to submit to a hegemon, after all, was an utterly ridiculous and almost impossible thing. Therefore, the Medicine King subconsciously treated Yi Fei as Soaring Snake's subordinate. In addition to old man Qingyun's provocation, the Medicine King was really tempted. After all, by sacrificing Yi Fei, they could gain 10% more profit. No matter how they looked at it, it was a good deal. When the Lord of Heaven saw that the Medicine King was about to give up on Yi Fei, he could not help but grumble incessantly. Others might not know, but he knew very well just how terrifying the existence behind Yi Fei was. If he angered that existence, the Lord of Heaven shuddered at the thought of it. Suddenly, he disregarded his seniority and shouted at Old Man Qingyun for the first time, "Old Man Qingyun, the Medicine Manor has always been open and aboveboard. Since Yi Fei has led Blackrock Peak to our Medicine Manor, how can we hand him over?" The Lord of Heaven's words made the Medicine King hesitate. He also felt that it was not appropriate to hand over Yi Fei now. Old Man Qingyun sneered, "So what? After injuring my grandson, does he still think he can walk out of Clear Cloud City alive? I did not do it personally because of Taoist Soaring Snake. I only asked him to commit suicide as an apology. Taoist Soaring Snake, I don't think my request is too much, is it?" "Too much." Soaring Snake's voice was cold and filled with uncontrollable anger. If anything happened to Yi Fei, he would be finished. How could Soaring Snake back down now? There was no need for Yi Fei to force him. Soaring Snake had already stood up again like the Lord of Heaven and protected Yi Fei in an extremely domineering manner. Meng Shi's reaction also made the expressions of the Lords of Heaven from Medicine Manor and Clear Cloud Pavilion very strange. Old Man Qin Yun's voice also turned cold. "Taoist Meng Shi, it's just a snake slave. You're not even willing to hand it over. Are you declaring war on me?" Boom! Old Man Qingyun's body suddenly radiated with fury. The wrath of a Tao Lord could change the color of heaven and earth, and cause space to become incomparably oppressive. Cold sweat broke out on Soaring Snake's forehead, but when he saw Yi Fei take out the medallion, Soaring Snake could only suppress his heartache and act tough to the end. He growled, "Old Man Qingyun, if the Clear Cloud Pavilion insists on harming Yi Fei, then this ancestor will not be afraid of a battle." When he recalled that Yi Fei was backed by a half-step divine lord like the celestial Tao Tree, Soaring Snake's courage suddenly grew. Yi Fei nodded inwardly as well. Soaring Snake was an experienced God King serpent who had almost broken through to become a Tao Lord. Even if he faced a true Tao Lord, Soaring Snake would still be able to put up a fight. In addition, Yi Fei didn't just have Soaring Snake by his side. He also had the support of the Lord of Heaven, Gua, who was secretly assisting him. Just as Soaring Snake was displaying his willingness to fight, the Lord of Heaven once more spoke to the Medicine King. "Your Highness, Yi Fei is extremely talented, and is a rare talent. He has even received the favor of Tao Lord Soaring Snake. Sai, if you wish to rope in Soaring Snake, you'll have to start with Yi Fei." The Medicine King nodded. The Lord of Heaven's words make sense. 10% of a estate world is still far too little compared to a half-step Tao Lord. However, Soaring Snake is the Lord of a region. Are you certain that Soaring Snake is truly willing to serve me? Don't worry, Your Highness. Due to certain reasons, Soaring Snake and I have already become sworn friends. So long as your highness is willing to help Yi Fei and I can mediate, Soaring Snake will definitely join your highness. This subordinate is willing to swear on his life. For the sake of his own life, the Lord of Heaven was also willing to risk it all. His guarantee finally made the Medicine King make up his mind. Even if he had to lose 10% of the estate world, he would still protect Yi Fei. Thus he would be able to rope in Soaring Snake, who had favored Yi Fei. Suddenly, the Medicine King led his subordinate, the Lord of Heaven, forward and said to Downlord Qin Yun, "Downlord Qin Yun, I've made up my mind. I don't want that 10% of the estate world. Take it as Yi Fei's apology for injuring Gao Sickle. What do you think?" "No, we can't let him off." Gao Sickle's soul was roaring. Not only was he injured, but his physical body was also destroyed. In the future, he could only possess another body. His strength and potential were greatly reduced. At this moment, Gao Sickle wished that he could drink Yi Fei's blood and eat Yi Fei's flesh. However, what made Gao Sickle so angry was that old man Qin Yun actually smiled and nodded when he heard the Medicine King's words. "All right, then it's settled. Since we've already agreed on the benefits, why don't we go and explore that Grotto Heaven world now?" Old man Qin Yun was very anxious. This eagerness came from the fact that a new Grotto Heaven world had appeared in the Baiyun Nation. He had suddenly recalled a rumor in the Baiyun Nation. That rumor was that the reason Baiyun Divine Lord was able to break through from an ordinary Lord of Heaven to a Tao Lord, and even a Divine Lord, was because Baiyun Divine Lord had once been in the Baiyun Nation. Chapter 2134. Sure, I'm also very interested in this Grotto Heaven world. Lord Heaven Gua, please lead the way. Taoist Meng Shi, I hope you don't mind my intrusion. The King of Medicine looked at Meng Shi with a smile. Meng Shi's sinister face was full of smiles. Lin Chen, on the other hand, was a little nervous. He quietly reminded Yi Fei, "Brother Yi, things are getting troublesome now. If Tao Lord Qin Yun and the King of Medicine discover anything, our Black Rock Peak will be completely destroyed in an instant." After all, the gap between the Black Rock Peak and the Medicine King Manor and Qingyun Pavilion was too huge. Since the King of Medicine and Tao Lord Qin Yun insisted on going to the Black Rock Peak to investigate, Yi Fei understood that no matter how worried he was, there was no point in objecting. Rather than that, he might as well go with the flow and let the two forces take a look. A quick death would also make them give up on their greedy hearts. Thinking up to this point, Yi Fei nodded slightly at Meng Shi without batting an eyelid. After receiving Yi Fei's approval, Meng Shi heaved a sigh of relief. While chatting happily with the Medicine King, he took the initiative to lead the way for the Medicine King. Meng Shi's action of being under someone else's command greatly pleased the Medicine King. Thus, he dismissed the idea of using the teleportation platform. Instead, he followed Flying Serpent to Black Rock Peak. It would be convenient for him to communicate with Flying Serpent on the way and win him over in advance. Regarding this, Tao Lord Azure Cloud was not angry at all. He just watched everything indifferently. Yi Fei could not help but sigh. This was the magnanimity of a Tao Lord. As long as the King of Medicine and Meng Shi did not become a true Tao Lord, they would not be a big threat to Tao Lord Qin Yun. However, the Soaring Serpent's actions had bought some time for the Black Rock Peak to react. On the way, Yi Fei did not say a word. He only helped Lin Gui treat his injuries. Lin Gui's external injuries were easy to heal, but the damage to his soul was very fatal. If something went wrong, he could die. If something went wrong, Lin Gui would lose the chance to continue breaking through. Yi Fei could only ask the Lord of Heaven to come over and discuss how to treat Lin Gui's injuries. The Lord of Heaven naturally did not dare to delay and quickly asked the Medicine King for a vitality pill. Only then did Lin Gui's injuries slowly recover. Martial artists of the Sovereign Realm and above were all very fast. They only used half a day's time. Soaring Serpent had already brought the Herb King and Tao Lord Green Cloud to Black Rock Peak. It happened to be evening. However, the black fog that had invaded the Black Rock Peak did not appear. Even the medicinal field that had been swallowed by the fog was completely revealed. The King of Medicine's face darkened. Tao Lord Green Cloud's indifferent expression turned furious as well. He looked at the Soaring Serpent with an irrepressible coldness in his eyes. "Where's the Grotto Heaven world? Why did the dark fog suddenly disappear?" The King of Medicine and Tao Lord Green Cloud had vaguely heard that the Grotto Heaven world here might have spiritual items of heaven and earth that could help people break through to the Tao Lord or even Divine Lord realm. Therefore, they joined forces to come here. Now that the Grotto Heaven world had disappeared, they were filled with rage. Sensing this rage, a deep shock flashed across the Soaring Serpent's sinister face. This was because Yi Fei had never told him that the dark fog here would disappear. In fact, Yi Fei was also surprised to see this scene. When he was in Qingyun City, he had secretly used the voice transmission mirror to record the negotiation between Tao Lord Green Cloud and the King of Medicine and passed it on to the people of Black Rock Peak. He did not expect everyone to react so quickly and make such appropriate arrangements. "I just don't know if this is the heavenly Tao tree or the handiwork of the divine punishment quasi-emperor. He actually hid the Grotto Heaven world directly. Wouldn't the King of Medicine and Tao Lord Green Cloud be angered to death?" Yi Fei suddenly felt some sympathy for these two people. They had fought fiercely in Qingyun City, but in the end, they did not get anything. Just as the Soaring Serpent did not know what to say to appease Tao Lord Green Cloud and the King of Medicine's anger, the divine punishment quasi-emperor stumbled over from the medicinal field in the distance and shouted in horror, "Divine King, something bad has happened." The dark fog suddenly disappeared, and so did the vicious beasts inside. The divine punishment quasi-emperor, who appeared at this time, had a cold expression. He was dressed in a black robe and held a snake staff in his hand. He was completely dressed as a snake slave. Yi Fei's eyes lit up when he saw this. As expected, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. Now, even the problem of everyone's identity has been completely solved. As long as you insist on your identity as a snake slave, I believe there will be nothing to say. Sure enough, when they saw a large group of snake slaves appearing in the surroundings, the King of Medicine and Tao Lord Green Cloud only glanced at them indifferently. When they realized that there were only a few heavenly venerables among these snake slaves, they immediately lost interest in interrogating them. Then, Tao Lord Green Cloud's face darkened and directly rushed to the medicinal field in the distance. The King of Medicine and the Lord of Heaven beside him also rushed over. "King of Medicine, there is still a dark aura here. That Grotto Heaven world must not have disappeared for too long. How about we work together to break the barrier and rush into that Grotto Heaven world?" Tao Lord Green Cloud's indifferent voice came from above the medicinal field. The King of Medicine only hesitated for a moment, but when he thought of the huge value of that Grotto Heaven world, he did not say anything and immediately led the Lord of Heaven under his command to attack the entrance of the thick fog wildly. Under the attack of Tao Lord Green Cloud and the Lord of Heaven, the medicinal field of Black Rock Peak was instantly destroyed and the mountain peak became a depression. Tao Lord Green Cloud also made a long crack in the sturdy space barrier. In the crack, one could vaguely see the dark fog rolling and surging. The dark fog was the chaotic space-time power and also the foundation of the Grotto Heaven world. When the Grotto Heaven world's mystic chi was lacking, the fog would appear and absorb the Heaven Realm's mystic chi. When the Heaven Realm's mystic chi was abundant, the fog would disappear and continue to hide in the Grotto Heaven world. However, what Yi Fei did not expect was that Tao Lord Green Cloud actually had the power to break the barrier and rush into the Grotto Heaven world. He could not help but quickly glance at the Sky Punishment Quasi-Emperor, only to see her gently blinking her eyes. Yi Fei suddenly felt relieved. He understood that even if Dao Lord Green Cloud broke the barrier, it would be difficult for him to really enter the Grotto Heaven world. Where did you snake slaves come from? Why haven't I seen you before? You'd better be honest. When the many Lord of Heaven joined forces to attack the Grotto Heaven world's barrier, only one Lord of Heaven did not take action. He was the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven. It was unknown whether it was because he hated Yi Fei to the core or because of his intuition, but the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven felt that there was something strange about these snake slaves. At this moment, he wanted to take advantage of the time when the others were breaking the barrier to capture one of the snake slaves and interrogate him. Chapter 21:35. Boom. The whistling sound of the heavy sword made the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven not dare to grab Yi Shanshan and interrogate him. Instead, he turned around ferociously and rebuked angrily, "How dare you? If it weren't for the Lord of Heaven Gua and the Snake God King protecting you, I could kill you with one hand. She's my sister. If you dare to touch even a strand of her hair, I promise you that you'll die a horrible death." Yi Fei's tone was cold, but seeing Yi Fei like this, Yi Shanshan revealed a happy smile. On the other side, Yi Xiaochan pouted unhappily, looking rather cute. As for the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, his face was completely distorted. With the strength of a Lord of Heaven, he could have easily slapped Yi Fei to death. However, when he saw Yi Fei's gaze that was as sharp as a sword, as well as Gua Tianjun and Meng Shi's full protection for Yi Fei, the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven clearly became hesitant. It's fine if you don't want me to do anything. But you have to answer my question. The entire Blackrock Peak is under my surveillance. How did these people appear on the Blackrock Peak without a sound? Don't tell me that they're all snake slaves. The Snake God clan of the Western Qin nation needs to be at least at the sovereign realm. Only then are they qualified to be snake slaves. No matter how poor the Snake God King of the Flying Serpent is, I believe that he won't take in a bunch of ants who aren't even heavenly venerables as slaves. Yi Fei then realized that there was a flaw in the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor's arrangement. Their cultivation levels were too low, so low that they aroused the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven's suspicion. He immediately looked at the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor did not say anything. He just silently walked to the peak and stomped his foot on the ground. Boom! A huge cave was revealed. Beside the cave stood a big black turtle that was poking its head out. Yi Fei's mood instantly became very good. He pointed at the cave and said coldly, "Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, see? This is how we enter and exit the Black Rock Peak. If you don't believe me, you can go down and check it out." Humph! Iron Hand Lord of Heaven coldly snorted and jumped into the cave, disappearing from sight. Yi Fei immediately asked the Quasi-Emperor of Tian Fa, "Are you sure you can fool him? As long as the Lord of Heaven is unable to break through the Heavenly Abodes barrier, we will definitely be able to deceive him." Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor was very confident. Boom! At the entrance of the black fog, there was a loud explosion. Then, all sorts of powerful mystiques from the Lord of Heaven and the Dao Lord rained down on the barrier of the Grotto Heaven world, trying to reopen it. This made Yi Fei a little nervous. He hoped that the Lord of Heaven would fail, but he also hoped that they would succeed. It would be best if they all charged in and got wiped out by the Heavenly Tree. However, if that happened, the secret of the trance and the spiritual realm would definitely be exposed. Perhaps this was the reason why the Heavenly Tree chose to close the Grotto Heaven world. Dao Lord Qin Yun, the Medicine Lord, and the others attacked for a full day and night. Other than the Lord of Heaven Gua and the Flying Serpent who did not put in any effort, the other Lords of Heaven used all their strength. However, what made these Lords of Heaven despair was that no matter what they did, they could not break through the barrier of the Grotto Heaven world. Dao Lord Qin Yun's expression suddenly became very ugly. The Lord of Heaven also suddenly stopped and returned to the Black Rock Peak, as if waiting for something. After a while, Iron Hand Lord of Heaven rushed out of the cave with a dark face and shook his head gloomily at the High Lord of Heaven. He had already carefully checked the cave just now and found that this cave was not only deep but also very long. It was so long that it directly surpassed the surveillance circle of the High Sickle people on the Black Rock Peak. In this way, as long as someone passed through this cave, they could successfully hide from the spies of the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Unknowingly, they appeared at the Black Rock Peak. In this way, even if Iron Hand Lord of Heaven felt that something was wrong again, he could no longer target Yi Fei. At this time, the Medicine Lord in the distance also let out a dejected sigh. There's no need to fight anymore. This Grotto Heaven world has been completely closed. Unless a Divine Lord comes personally, our strength alone is not enough. More than 10 Tao Lords won't be able to break through. Are we giving up just like this? Tao Lord Qin Yun's expression was ugly. In order to fight for this Grotto Heaven world, not only did he come out of seclusion, he even endured the fact that his grandson's body was destroyed. In the end, he gained nothing. There's no choice but to give up. Of course, if Tao Lord Qin Yun has a better way, I can accompany you. A cold look flashed across the Flying Serpent's sinister face. Tao Lord Qin Yun's expression was cold. He really ignored everyone and continuously bombarded the barrier for a long time. However, what made Tao Lord Qin Yun despair was that his strength was enough to kill a Tao Lord of the same level 10 times, but he still couldn't break through the Grotto Heaven world. Sigh, maybe this is fate. Bai Yun God is lucky. So he went in and obtained a spiritual item of heaven and earth that was enough for him to break through to the Divine Lord level. I don't have his luck. Tao Lord Qin Yun sighed. In the end, he had to stop this futile attack because of the huge consumption of his celestial qi. High Lord of Heaven and Iron Hand Lord of Heaven also left Black Rock Peak with Tao Lord Qin Yun, full of resentment. The Medicine Lord was also full of resentment. After all, he was only a half-step Tao Lord. Compared to Old Man Qin Yun, he hoped to step into the Tao Lord level more. Brother Flying Serpent, you really didn't enter that Grotto Heaven world? The Medicine Lord refused to give up and began to repeatedly ask Flying Serpent. A cold light flashed across Flying Serpent's malicious face. Medicine Lord, are you doubting me? Even if you don't believe me, you should believe in the Lord of Heaven. Recently, he has been monitoring Black Rock Peak. In the end, Meng Shi snorted coldly and turned his head away in displeasure. Immediately, Guotianjun put on an embarrassed expression as well. Their act finally made the Medicine King give up his suspicions unwillingly. He forced a smile and said, I've misunderstood Brother Meng Shi. How about this, as an apology, I'll give you 10 days. After that, I am willing to introduce you to a benefactor. What benefactor? Flying Serpent was curious. The Crown Prince of Bai Yun Nation, Lu Qianzhong, who is also the only son of Bai Yun God. The Medicine Lord's tone was filled with excitement. In the Bai Yun Nation, the Medicine King manner had always been suppressed by the Clear Cloud Pavilion and was unable to develop. The Medicine King had always hoped that the Bai Yun Divine Lord would return and regain his power. This way, the old subordinates of the Bai Yun Divine Lord would rise in status and reap great benefit. At this time, if they could rope in a half-step Tao Lord before Lu Qianzhong, the Medicine Lord, returned, they would undoubtedly be valued more. Hearing this, Flying Serpent was clearly shocked. Yi Fei was even more shocked. When Lu Qianzhong, the son of Bai Yun God, was coming back, he had already heard the news from the Lord of Heaven. However, he did not expect that the son of Bai Yun God would return so quickly. Chapter 2136. The Medicine King also left with his subordinate, the Lord of Heaven. However, before he left, under the recommendation of the Lord of Heaven, the Medicine King reluctantly left the Lord of Heaven behind to guard the Black Rock Peak. His motive was self-evident. The Medicine King still refused to give up on the Black Rock Peak's Grotto Heaven world. Similarly, Dao Lord Qin Yun was also unwilling to give up. Although he did not send the Lord of Heaven to guard the Black Rock Peak, he tacitly approved of the hatred between the Tall Sickle and the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven towards Yi Fei. In an instant, more spies from the Clear Cloud Pavilion appeared around the Black Rock Peak. The entire Black Rock Peak was under the surveillance of the Medicine King Manor and the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Everyone on the Black Rock Peak felt immense pressure. The first thing Lin Gui did after recovering from his injuries was to apologize to Yi Fei. "Peak Master, it's all my fault. If I wasn't captured by the Clear Cloud Pavilion, you wouldn't have exposed the secret of the Black Rock Peak to save me. Lin Gui, if you treat me as a friend, don't say that. You and Lin Chen are both members of the Black Rock Peak. If anything happened to either of you, I would have done the same. Moreover, the exposure of the Black Rock Peak was not your fault. Every Grotto Heaven world had great value. Yi Fei had long known that since the Medicine King Manor could send the Lord of Heaven to investigate, it was only a matter of time before the Grotto Heaven world was exposed. It was just that Lin Gui's capture caused this matter to be exposed earlier. Even so, Lin Chen and Lin Gui still blamed themselves. They looked at each other and seemed to have decided on something. Suddenly, they knelt down on one knee and said in a low voice, "Peak Master, from now on, our lives are yours." What made them make such a decision was that Yi Fei was willing to take such a huge risk to save them. That was why they said such words that were similar to pledging their loyalty. Yi Fei also gladly accepted Lin Chen and Lin Gui's loyalty. Through this matter, it was not that he did not gain anything. At least, Lin Chen and Lin Gui both proved that they were trustworthy. Since he was trustworthy, Yi Fei had nothing to hide. "Lin Chen, Lin Gui, haven't you always been curious about where my companions came from? Now I'll bring you to have a look." Digging a hole in the ground could only fool outsiders like the Iron Hand Lord of Heaven, but it could not fool Lin Chen and Lin Gui. Thus, Yi Fei decided to tell them the secret of the Grotto Heaven world. Of course, at the same time that they knew the secret, they would also be under the Heavenly Tree's control, just like everyone else. This kind of restriction would prevent them from revealing the secret of the Paradise world. Even so, the Lin brothers were still very excited. Because through this action, they could be considered to have truly integrated into Yi Fei's small group and become members of Black Rock Peak. Dao Lord Green Cloud did not know that shortly after they left, the barrier of the Grotto Heaven that could not be broken had been reopened. Then, Yi Fei led the others back in. Squeak! As soon as he walked in, Yi Fei saw Xiao Chao striding towards him happily with his short legs. He did not know if it was an illusion, but Yi Fei felt that Xiao Chao seemed to have grown a little after not seeing him for a month. Moreover, Xiao Chao was accompanied by the dragon turtle. When Lin Chen and Lin Gui saw Xiao Chao, they were dumbfounded on the spot. What was even more dumbfounded was that there were 10-meter-tall battle tree men standing around Xiao Chao. These tree men were tall and strong, like invincible Vajra warriors, giving off a strong sense of oppression. Yi Fei also looked at the dragon turtle beside Xiao Chao in shock. Then, he hurriedly looked at the big black turtle that followed him in. "Brother, it's me." The big black turtle suddenly spoke in human language, almost scaring the dragon turtle that ran over. It was not until the big black turtle transformed into Pang Bei's appearance that the dragon turtle heaved a sigh of relief. Everyone was envious of Pang Bei's ability to transform into a beast as he wished. Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do even if they were envious. Pang Bei was using the demon clan's divine ability. Moreover, it required a very noble demon bloodline to use this divine ability. Even the dragon turtle and blood demon of the demon clan could not learn this divine ability. As Lin Gui was captured and the paradise was exposed, Yi Fei did not dare to let everyone wander around outside. Instead, he brought everyone into the paradise, leaving only the Lord of Heaven and Meng Shi to keep watch outside. This lasted until 10 days later. Today was the day that Prince Baiyun, Lu Qianchong, returned to the Baiyun nation from the Divine Land. It was also a huge event that shook the entire Qing province. As there was no Lord God in the Qing province, the sudden return of Prince Baiyun inevitably made people worried. Would Lord God Baiyun return? If Lord God Baiyun returned, how would the Qing province's 4 big countries, big and small forces deal with him? Therefore, when the news of Prince Baiyun's return spread, not only was the Baiyun nation shocked, the royal families of the other countries were also nervous. They began to send envoys to the Baiyun nation to pay their respects to Prince Baiyun. As the Black Rock Peak, who had a half-step Tao Lord, Meng Shi naturally received the invitation. Together with the Lord of Heaven, they headed to the largest palace in the Baiyun nation. No one had ever lived in this palace. Even the strongest Green Cloud Pavilion, Old Man Qing Yun, didn't dare to move the Green Cloud Pavilion into the palace. Only now, with the return of the Baiyun Crown Prince, did the Baiyun nation's dusty palace regain its liveliness. Here Yi Fei saw a familiar face. Lu Yong from the Wu Ho government was also among the envoys from the Tianhe nation. However, Yi Fei did not have time to speak to Lu Yong. In the sky above the Baiyun nation, a huge sun god ship appeared. On the ship, there was a handsome young man in a white robe. A young man stood at the bow of the ship. He's here. Prince Baiyun is back. He is the son of a Lord God. Although he is the prince, his status is comparable to the kings of other countries. Oh my God, there is a Tao Lord beside Prince Baiyun. Suddenly, another wave of shock swept through the crowd as they saw a one-eyed old man standing behind Lu Qianzhong, Crown Prince Baiyun. He looked ferocious, but he emitted the aura of a Tao Lord. It's Chen Yang. He was the commander of the Baiyun God's Imperial Guards. He followed the Lord God to the Divine Land. I didn't expect him to not only survive, but also become a Tao Lord. King Medicine was shocked and envious. He suddenly regretted not following the Lord God to the Divine Land. Instead, he stayed in a small place like the Baiyun nation, Feng. Although they were the nobles, compared to Chen Yang who had become a Tao Lord, the Medicine King manor was too small. Old Man Qing Yun's expression was extremely ugly. In the Baiyun nation, he was the only Tao Lord. His words were more powerful than the emperor's. Not only did Prince Baiyun return, but he also brought a Tao Lord servant with him. This made Old Man Qing Yun feel a slight sense of danger. Subsequently, Old Man Qing Yun retracted his disappointment and decided to greet Crown Prince Baiyun. However, before he could do so, 4 men and 4 women walked down from the battleship. Their expressions were indifferent as they followed behind Crown Prince Baiyun like his followers. Their faces were made of black iron. Chapter 2137. With the appearance of Crown Prince Baiyun, the entire imperial palace was in an uproar. The envoys from various countries swarmed forward, wishing that Lu Qianzhong would only talk to him. The old subordinates of Baiyun God Monarch from the Baiyun Alliance were elated. They even looked at the people of Clear Cloud Pavilion with ridicule. In the past, Clear Cloud Pavilion had a Tao monarch in charge, which took away most of the benefits of the Baiyun Alliance. However, it was different now. Baiyun Crown Prince was back and he had a Tao monarch as his servant. This was too prestigious. The people of Clear Cloud Pavilion, from Tao monarch Qing Yun to the ordinary sovereigns, all had ugly expressions on their faces. Only Gao Sickle, who was in the crowd, glared at Yi Fei with hatred in his eyes. Then, Gao Sickle noticed that Yi Fei's gaze was unusual. Yi Fei didn't look at Baiyun Crown Prince or anyone else. His gaze was fixed on the lady beside Baiyun Crown Prince. Although the lady was wearing a mask, her face couldn't be seen clearly. She was Lu Qianzhong's subordinate after all. Yi Fei's gaze was inappropriate. It was too polite. A malicious light instantly flashed across Gao Yin's face. He suddenly gathered his courage and directly yelled at Yi Fei, Yi Fei, how dare you! In front of His Highness the Crown Prince, you don't know how to be respectful. You even revealed an evil light in your eyes and only stared at the body of the woman beside the Crown Prince. You actually have such a filthy heart. Boom. Gao Sickle's sudden attack had a huge effect. When countless people were fawning over by Yun Crown Prince, someone actually dared to look at the lady beside the Crown Prince. How bold and arrogant was this? When they saw that the rude person was actually Yi Fei, many people couldn't help but reveal strange expressions. Lu Qianzhong also turned his head curiously and looked over. Early stage sovereign realm? Who is this person? Your Highness, this person's name is Yi Fei. He's a heinous demon who is known for being greedy and lecherous. I can tell that this person is eyeing your follower. He most likely has evil intentions. The person who spoke was the envoy of the Tianhe kingdom. The Tianhe royal family had a huge grudge against Yi Fei, so the envoy naturally didn't mind. He fanned the flames. Lord God of Heaven's expression changed. He hurriedly tried to cover up for Yi Fei. Your Highness, please forgive me. Yi Fei is actually an honest person. He didn't mean to disrespect your Highness. Right, he's also a subordinate of the Snake God King. The Snake God King has the potential to become a Tao Lord, but he was ambushed and fled into worship. The Yun nation is now more than willing to join the Baiyun alliance and serve your Highness. He has the potential to become a Tao Lord? Although Lu Qianzhong didn't say anything, Tao Lord Chen Yang, who was standing behind him, was visibly moved. He whispered to Lu Qianzhong, Young master, if that is the case, then the Snake God Monarch is worth roping in. Lu Qianzhong nodded and looked at Yi Fei calmly. Forget about his rudeness. After all, he's from a small place and hasn't seen much of the world. Ask him to come over and talk to me. Your Highness is really magnanimous. Lord God of Heaven was overjoyed and hurried over to Yi Fei. Many people looked at Yi Fei enviously when they saw that a mere ruler actually had the opportunity to talk to Lu Qianzhong. Yi Fei, what kind of dog's hit luck does he have? Gao Lian had suddenly exposed Yi Fei. He had purposely wanted to disgust Yi Fei and leave a bad impression on Yi Fei in front of Lu Qianzhong. In the end, not only had he failed to prank Yi Fei, but he had also indirectly helped Yi Fei attract Lu Qianzhong's attention. Gao Lian was furious. His body, which had just been possessed, was aching from anger. Upon hearing Yi Fei's name, the figure of one of the 4 men and 4 women suddenly trembled unconsciously. Although the trembling was very slight, Yi Fei's eyes were fixed on the figure. Naturally, he also noticed the abnormality in that instant. Great waves immediately surged in his heart, and his expression became gloomy and uncertain. Then, Yi Fei ignored everyone and said directly to the beast mark space, Xiao Qiao, open your spiritual eye of heaven and earth and help me confirm her identity. In the palace, there was either a Tao Lord or the Lord God of Heaven. The 4 men and 4 women were wearing strange dark iron masks. It was obviously inappropriate to use his divine perception to probe them. Therefore, Yi Fei thought of a new method. He asked Xiao Qiao to use his spiritual eye of heaven and earth. Upon hearing Yi Fei's words, a willow leaf-shaped vertical eye appeared on Xiao Qiao's forehead. There were strange patterns on the edges that looked like 2 butterfly wings. It was very beautiful. Boom. When Xiao Qiao used his spiritual eye of heaven and earth to look at the 4 men and 4 women, something unexpected happened. The dark iron masks on their faces suddenly erupted with intense divine light. This divine light made Tao Lord Chen Yang, who was standing behind Lu Qianzhong, change his expression drastically. Who are you? How dare you spy on the Baiyun Nation's palace? Get out here. A terrifying Tao Lord aura suddenly erupted from Tao Lord Chen Yang's body. Like the Tao of Heaven, it instantly enveloped the entire palace. At the same time, his divine perception swept across the entire place like a tidal wave. Every single person. A cold glint flashed across the King of Medicine's eyes. He suddenly looked at Dao Lord Qin Yun and said, "Brother Qin Yun, you're in the wrong. If you're curious about Her Highness's servant, you can ask directly. Why do you have to do such a despicable thing and make everyone unhappy?" "I didn't do such a thing. Don't slander me, King of Medicine." Dao Lord Qin Yun's face was livid as he denied it. Unfortunately, he had the highest cultivation level here, and Green Cloud Pavilion had always been the uncrowned king. It was fine if Dao Lord Qin Yun did not deny it. The more he denied it, the more suspicious everyone looked at him. A murderous glint flashed across Dao Lord Qin Yang's eyes. He said coldly, "I also felt a strange gaze just now. Dao Lord Qin Yun, if you dare to do it, why don't you dare to admit it?" "I really didn't do it." Dao Lord Qin Yun was so angry that his face was distorted. His divine perception also swept around fiercely, trying to find the person who harmed him. At this moment Lu Qianzhong smiled. He raised his hand and said, "Uncle Chen, there's no need to be so suspicious. The 8 of them have Lord God restrictions on them personally placed by my father. Unless a Lord God comes personally, it's impossible to break them. If anyone is curious, just let them see." Lu Qianzhong's expression was indifferent. However, his words made the expressions of all the forces present change. They secretly started to think about what Lu Qianzhong meant. Was he warning Green Cloud Pavilion or someone else? However, many of them could tell that Lu Qianzhong's return this time was unlikely. It was that simple. After all, who would bring 8 mysterious men and women back for no reason? Moreover, all of them had Lord God restrictions on them. Chapter 2138. The banquet in the palace was still going on. Yi Fei looked at the 4 men and 4 women behind Lu Qianzhong absent-mindedly. As the Divine Lord restriction on the Black Iron Mask had been activated, even Dao Lord Qin Yun couldn't tell who the 8 people were, let alone him. Not only did they wear the same clothes, but their masks were also the same. Even their auras and stature were blurred by the Divine Lord's spell. Yi Fei had completely given up on investigating. He found the Lord of Heaven Guo in the crowd and said softly, "Lord of Heaven Guo, from now on, you and Meng Shi's mission is to find out the identities of the 8 mysterious people behind Lu Qianzhong, especially the identities of the 4 women. You must find out." "My lord, could it be that you were the one who activated the Divine Lord restriction just now?" The Lord of Heaven Guo was shocked. Then, he smiled bitterly and said, "Even Dao Lord Qin Yun had to lower his head in front of Lu Qianzhong. I'm just the Lord of Heaven. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for me to complete the mission." Yi Fei said in a low voice, "You and Meng Shi just have to do your best." Lu Qianzhong's identity was no small matter. He even had a Dao Lord following him. It would be best if the Lord of Heaven Guo and Meng Shi could find out. If they couldn't, Yi Fei wouldn't blame them. After all, this was the first time he saw a Divine Lord restriction that could block Xiao Chao's heaven and earth spiritual eye. After instructing the Lord of Heaven Guo, Yi Fei left the palace with a heavy heart. His departure naturally didn't cause any commotion in the palace filled with Dao Lords of the Lord of Heaven. Only Gao Yu, who hated Yi Fei to the core, had a cold look in his eyes. The Lord of Heaven beside him immediately warned him in a low voice, "Gao Yu, you'd better restrain yourself. It's time for revenge." Yes. At this moment, the Clear Cloud Pavilion had no time to care about the grudges between the 2 juniors, Yi Fei and Gao Lian. Even the Grotto Heaven realm had been thrown to the back of their mind. They were fully focused on dealing with Lu Qianzhong's return, which had a huge impact on the Clear Cloud Pavilion and the Baiyu Nation. Without the support of his family, Gao Sickle could only suppress the resentment in his heart. He only said jealously, "How can this Yi guy be so lucky? It's one thing for him to be valued by a half-step Dao Lord like Soaring Serpent, but why do I feel that the Lord Heaven Guo also listens to that kid's words? I commanded Iron Hand to obey the Lord of Heaven. Of course, if Gao Lian knew that the Lord of Heaven Gua and the Flying Serpent not only obeyed Yi Fei, but also considered themselves servants, Gao Lian would most likely vomit blood from anger. On the Black Rock Peak, the return of the Baiyu Nation's crown prince, Lu Qianzhong, attracted all the attention of the Medicine Manor and the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Di Fan and the others could once again leave the Grotto Heaven realm and move about freely outside. However, what surprised them was that today was clearly the day when the important figures of the Baiyu Nation gathered at the palace. Yet, Yi Fei had returned alone very early and seemed to have a lot on his mind. "Brother, what's wrong?" Little Fatty Pang Bei was followed by a large group of devil monkeys. They were all vicious beasts that lived near the Black Rock Peak. However, they had been subdued by the devil monkeys that Little Fatty had transformed into. They were also secretly acting as spies for the Black Rock Peak. If anyone was monitoring the Black Rock Peak, these devil monkeys would immediately send a message to the Black Rock Peak. If it was in the past, Yi Fei would definitely ask Little Fatty about the process of subduing these devil monkeys. However, Yi Fei was feeling a little depressed now. He just passed through the Black Rock Peak without saying a word and directly entered the Grotto Heaven realm. He found the Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor and Alliance Master Shang Jing, who were still cultivating inside. When they saw Yi Fei coming over, they were very puzzled. "Isn't Prince Baiyun returning today? Yi Fei, why are you back so soon?" Shang Jing asked. Yi Fei was a little distracted. "I saw a very familiar figure in the palace just now. However, I can't confirm her true identity." Whoosh! He tapped his glabella and a blurry but familiar figure walked out from his memory. However, this figure became extremely blurry in an instant. However, the moment Shang Jing saw that figure, she suddenly trembled. She grabbed Yi Fei's arm excitedly and said, "Luo, she must be Shang Luo. That's great, we finally found her." "No, she's not Shang Luo. She's Lu Qing. She must be Lu Qing." The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor was also excited and said loudly. Then, the two of them stared at each other as if the other had admitted his mistake. Hearing this, Yi Fei was even more speechless. "Why do I feel like she's more like Zhao Yu?" "What? Big brother, you found sister-in-law Zhao Yu?" In the distance, Xia Jun and Luo Shi walked over together. Behind them was Little Fatty Pang Bei. Finally, Di Fan and the others also heard the news and ran over. Yi Fei was even more depressed. He shook his head and said, "This is why I came back. This figure is too blurry and there's a Divine Lord restriction. Now, I can only be sure that she could be Zhao Yu, Lu Qing, or Shangluo. However, she could be none of them. I came back to ask the Heavenly Dao Tree about this matter." "Spirit Master, there's no need to ask. If I'm not wrong, a Divine Lord has placed a very powerful concealment restriction on her body. This restriction can't be seen through even by the princess's spiritual eye of heaven and earth. Only the divine eye of heaven and earth can do it." The Heavenly Dao Tree walked over from afar and gave Yi Fei an answer that disappointed him. Xiao Chao hadn't even fully cultivated the spiritual eye of heaven and earth. He didn't know how long it would take for him to attain the divine eye of heaven and earth. "Is there no other way?" Yi Fei asked unwillingly. "No. Unless I break through to the Divine Lord level, I can't break this restriction." The Heavenly Dao Tree shook his head. He was a spiritual tree and a half-step Divine Lord. Yi Fei knew that if the Heavenly Dao Tree couldn't do anything, then he really couldn't. Unless he could forcefully snatch the person from Lu Qianzhong's hands. However, that was obviously unrealistic. Moreover, if he did that, he wouldn't be able to stay in the Baiyu Nation. Now, Yi Fei could only hope that the Lord of Heaven Gua or Meng Shi could find out Lu Qianzhong's motive for returning to the Baiyu Nation and the identities of the 8 mysterious people. Time passed by slowly. The banquet in the palace lasted until late at night. Meng Shi returned to the Black Rock Peak drunk. The Lord of Heavenguo was still a member of the Medicine Manor, and remained in the palace. "My lord, I have two pieces of very bad news. Do you want to hear the light or the heavy news first?" Mengshi forced out the smell of alcohol. His eyes were serious and filled with deep shock. "The light news first." Yi Fei's expression also turned serious. "The light news is that we can't find out the information you want us to find out." "What about the heavy news?" Yi Fei was very depressed and continued to ask. "The heavy news is that we finally know Lu Qianzhong's motive for returning to the Baiyun nation. He came for the Rizu's treasure. During the banquet today, Lu Qianzhong called for all the countries to hand over all the Rizu's treasure map they obtained to him. However, the imperial family of the Sky River said that their treasure map had already fallen into the hands of my lord." Chapter 2139. When Lu Qianzhong announced his purpose for returning to the Baiyun nation, the entire palace was in an uproar. Many forces knew that Lu Qianzhong must have a motive for abandoning a martial arts holy land like the Divine Prefecture and returning to a small place like the Baiyun nation. However, no one expected Lu Qianzhong to be after Rizu's treasure. Rizu was said to be the only powerful Rinzu who had once ruled the entire Qingzhou. When the Lightning Ancestor ruled over the Azure Province, the Azure Province was extremely powerful and had countless Tao Lords and Divine Lord. However, after the Lightning Ancestor died in battle, the entire Azure Province quickly declined. Many Tao Lords and Divine Lords entered the Divine Land and never returned. This also caused a gap between Tao Lords and Divine Lords in Qingzhou. In the current Qingzhou, those who could break through to the Tao Lord realm were already rare. However, there were rumors about Rizu in Qingzhou, especially about how Rizu hid a large number of treasures before he died in battle. He also divided the treasure map into several parts and placed them in various parts of Qingzhou. This rumor had been spreading for a long time because of the competition for these treasure maps. There were more than a dozen countries in Qingzhou, but now there were only 4. The treasure maps were in the Western Qin Nation, the Yunxue Nation, the Baiyun Nation, and the Tianhe Nation. The Tianhe Nation's treasure map was hidden until it was accidentally obtained by heaven and earth supremacy and fell into the hands of Yi Fei. The remaining 3 parts were obtained by the Western Qin royal family, the Yunxue royal family, and the Baiyun Divine Lord. Among them, the Baiyun Divine Lord had the most important one. It contained the key to opening Rizu's treasure. This was also the reason why the Baiyun Divine Lord entered the Divine Prefecture not long after the founding of his nation. He wanted the key to finding Rizu's treasure. However, the key to Rizu's treasure is very difficult to find. The Baiyun Divine Lord only found it recently. However, there is a very serious restriction to entering Rizu's treasure. Mengshi said sinisterly, according to Lu Qianzhong, to enter Rizu's treasure, one must be below the level of the Lord of Heaven. Furthermore, one must be younger than 100 years old. Therefore, the one who found the key and returned to the Baiyun nation was not the Baiyun Divine Lord, but his son, Lu Qianzhong. Lu Qianzhong also made good use of his special identity as the son of the Divine Lord to publicly request for the other countries to hand over the map of the human race's treasure. Since they could not afford to offend the Divine Lord, the Yunxue Nation and Yunxue Nation had agreed. Only the Sky River Kingdom was in an awkward situation. That was because the map was not in the hands of the Sky River royal family, but in the hands of Yi Fei. That was why Mengshi was chased away halfway through his drinking session. "My lord, this is the situation. Lu Qianzhong wants you to bring the dragon skin map and meet him now," Mengshi said helplessly. When Yi Fei heard that Lu Qianzhong had a request and used a commanding tone, Yi Fei was instantly displeased. He said coldly, "He can ask for the dragon skin map, but he has to come and see me personally." Mengshi was embarrassed. However, when he saw Yi Fei's firm and even angry gaze, Mengshi did not dare to say anything else. He could only take out his telepathic mirror and help Yi Fei pass the message. Of course, Meng Shi's message was very tactful. Yi Fei was so angry that he did not even dare to mention it. In the palace, Lord Daoist Chen was obviously angry after hearing Meng Shi's message. What's wrong with Meng Shi? I only asked his subordinate to hand over the dragon skin map. Why is he so slow? He even wants you to take it personally. What? He wants young Master Lu to take it personally? That Meng Shi is so arrogant. He's just an animal. Someone immediately expressed his dissatisfaction, hoping to attract Lu Qianzhong's attention. The Sky River Imperial Envoy was even more vicious. He said coldly, I think it's not that Meng Shi doesn't want to give it to Yi Fei. However, this Yi Mo's relationship with the Soaring Serpent is really strange. He is clearly just a subordinate of the Serpent King, but why do I feel like the Soaring Serpent has to seek Yi Mo's opinion on everything? Gao Lian began to add insult to injury as well, feeling sour and jealous in his heart. The Iron Hand Lord of Heaven volunteered, Your Highness, I'll go to the Black Rock Peak now and capture that evil creature for Your Highness to deal with. Is it worth it? Lu Qianzhong held his wine cup and sneered disdainfully. He's just a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. He doesn't want to hand over the treasure map because he wants some benefit. Uncle Chun, go and bring back the treasure map personally. Yes. Chun Yang nodded. He understood. After all, Lu Qianzhong had just entered the Baiyu nation. If he was too domineering, it would cause uneasiness among the other forces. He wanted to use a nobody like Yi Fei to show his generosity. Seeing that Yi Fei had stirred up trouble again, the Lord of Heaven complained inwardly. Ignoring the King of Medicine's doubtful gaze, he volunteered again to lead the way for Chen Yang. The two of them rushed to the Black Rock Peak together. Yi Fei had been waiting there for a long time. Lu Qianzhong didn't come? How dare you? How dare a nobody like you call my master by his name? You're Yi Fei. I heard that the last dragon scroll is in your hands. What do you want before you're willing to hand it over? Lord Daoist Chen Yang looked at Yi Fei with disdain. His divine perception also took the opportunity to scan the Black Rock Peak. At this time, the Black Rock Peak had already been destroyed when Lord Daoist Qin Yun and the others attacked the Grotto Heaven barrier. Even the martial artists cultivating in the Black Rock Peak were only heavenly venerables or earthly venerables, except for the three sovereigns. Lord Daoist Chen Yang was used to living in the Divine Land and had never seen such a shabby force. He was even more certain that Yi Fei didn't hand over the Dragon Scroll because he wanted to get more benefits. Yi Fei wasn't angry at Lord Daoist Chen Yang's contemptuous gaze. He pretended not to see it and only stretched out 2 fingers. You want me to hand over the Dragon Scroll? Sure, but you have to answer 2 of my questions. Your Highness, who are you planning to let into the Rizu's treasure this time? So this country bumpkin from a small place also wants to get into the Rizu's treasure. No wonder you're unwilling to hand over the Dragon Scroll. Thinking that he had seen through Yi Fei's intentions, Lord Daoist Chen Yang's gaze became even more contemptuous. He said coldly, My master has already said that only the sovereigns of the 4 royal families, Qinyun Pavilion, and Medicine King Manor can enter the Rizu's tomb. Of course, since you contributed the map, I think he can make an exception. He'll let you in as well. Yi Fei's expression didn't change. He understood that this might be Lu Qianzhong's compromise to get the other countries to hand over the Dragon Scroll. However, the Rizu's treasure was important, but the news of Zhao Yu, Lu Qing, and Shangluo was more important. Second question. Who are the 8 sovereign servants behind your Highness? Will they also enter? Yi Fei continued asking. Why are you asking this? Lord Daoist Chen Yang looked at Yi Fei warily. Chapter 2140. I'm relieved. This is the Dragonskin Scroll. Take it. Without batting an eyelid, Yi Fei took out the dragon skin scroll and said, "If I give you this scroll, can you guarantee that I'll be able to enter the lightning ancestor's tomb?" Lord Taoist Qin Yang finally stopped hiding his disdain. He raised his hand and threw out a token that flashed with lightning. Yi Fei calmly took the token and looked at the Lord of Heaven. The Lord of Heaven nodded secretly and said, "This is the Rizu token." Back then, Lord Bai Yun obtained the blueprint of the Rizu token and the information about entering Rizu's tomb. The three royal families all obtained such tokens. They are proof of the ancestral tomb. At this point, the Lord of Heaven obviously hesitated. Since Qin Yang was present, he couldn't tell Yi Fei that the three royal families each obtained 10 Rizu tokens, but Yi Fei only obtained one. In other words, only Yi Fei from the Black Rock Peak could enter Rizu's tomb, but he ate one. He secretly suffered a loss. Yi Fei didn't care about this. His main goal was to figure out the identities of the 8 men and 8 women. As for Rizu's treasure, it was only secondary. After all, even if he didn't obtain Rizu's treasure, he could still obtain Rinzu's Sword Dao inheritance when he went to the Sword Palace. He straightforwardly handed over the dragon skin scroll. Remember, come to the palace in 10 days. I won't wait for you if you're late." Lord Taoist Qin Yang snorted and quickly left with the dragon skin scroll. Compared to wasting time with a nobody like Yi Fei, it was more important to gather the scrolls as soon as possible and find Rizu's treasure. Just like that, with Lu Qianzhong's appearance as the son of a divine lord, the dragon skin scroll that Qingzhou hadn't been able to gather for thousands of years was all gathered in less than 3 days. This also showed how much pressure a divine lord could exert on the various countries in the Azure State. After that, the 10 most outstanding youths from each country were selected to enter the Baiyun nation. Very quickly, the Baiyun nation's imperial palace was filled with the most outstanding young experts of the Qing state. These young experts came from different regions and were all young geniuses who dominated their own regions. Now that they had met, clashes were inevitable. The Reverence Cloud Imperial Palace quickly became a stage for these young experts to spar. Just as these battles were in full swing, a voice suddenly rang out. The Black Rock Peak was exceptionally quiet. Since he had decided to enter Rizu's tomb, Yi Fei would not be unprepared. First, he asked the Lord of Heaven to use his identity as a high-ranking member of the Medicine Manor to buy a large amount of divine materials. These divine materials were all needed to upgrade the dark steel heavy sword. After the divine materials were prepared, Yi Fei entered the Grotto Heaven world again. As the Spirit Lord, he called down the sun that was flying randomly in the sky. According to the heavenly Tao tree, the true form of the sun was a powerful heaven and earth furnace from the primordial age. It was a treasure that all blacksmiths and alchemists dreamed of. Later on, this furnace was spiritualized by the immortal spirit tribe and became the sun that illuminated this Grotto Heaven world. But other than illumination, the heaven and earth furnace's greatest function was to be a master blacksmith. Its function was very powerful. Yi Fei only needed to throw in the dark steel heavy sword and the materials needed to upgrade it. The heaven and earth furnace automatically began to fuse the dark steel heavy sword with these materials. 3 days later, the heaven and earth furnace was completed. A brand new dark steel heavy sword was spat out by the heaven and earth furnace. Its grade also rose from the 4th level to the 5th level in an instant. This also meant that this heavy sword could withstand 5 spiritual attachment. This is great. My cultivation level is too low for the undying sword soul. However, this brand new dark steel heavy sword can allow me to unleash 100% of its power. Yi Fei stroked the dark steel heavy sword in his hand happily. He tried to swing it a few more times, and the sword whistled in the air. Next, it should be level 5 spiritual attachment. Senior Heavenly Tao Tree, I'll leave this to you. Haha, Spirit Lord, let the little princess do this. She has already obtained the complete inheritance of the immortal spirit tribe. It won't be difficult for her to inscribe level 5 divine runes. The heavenly Tao tree smiled. Xiao Chao also puffed out his chest, indicating that Xiao Chao had also become very powerful. Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He said, "If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble Senior Heavenly Tao Tree to go to the underworld realm a few more times and guide the people there in their cultivation." Even though there was the heaven and earth divine bridge in the spiritual realm, the Heavenly Tao Tree could only bring experts of the martial god realm to the heaven realm. There were also many disciples of the family Yi and disciples of the true martial sacred academy who did not enter the heaven realm. Yi Jian did not enter the heaven realm because Yi Jian was worried about the family Yi. He had just broken through to the demigod realm and had not reached the martial god realm yet. The Heavenly Tao Tree's face darkened. "Do you think it's easy to go to the underworld realm? Do you know how much energy it takes for me to go back and forth? How about this, I'll work hard again and help you refine a protective spiritual tablet." Yi Fei's eyes lit up. He thought of the jade tablet on Gao Shen's neck. It should have been refined by Lord Qin Yun. Now, he had one too. It was refined by a half-step divine lord. Its power must be even more shocking. It's a pity that Lord Qinyang is too cautious and loyal to Lord Baiyun. Otherwise, I would have tricked him into entering the heaven realm and let Senior Heavenly Tao Tree subdue him. Perhaps then I wouldn't have to enter the tomb of Rizu. Even if I did enter, I might be able to take all the benefits for myself. Yi Fei sighed. The Heavenly Tao Tree was horrified. It started to worry about Xiao Chao's education. At the same time, under Lu Qianzhong's orders and the full cooperation of the 3 royal families, the location of the hidden tomb of Rizu was quickly determined. Unexpectedly, the location of the tomb of Rizu was in the Baiyun nation. Moreover, the location was very familiar to the Medicine Manor and Qinyun Pavilion. This was because the tomb of Rizu was hidden in the first grotto heaven of the Baiyun nation. Once the news was out, all the forces in the Baiyun nation were shocked. The one who regretted it the most was old man Qinyun. Renzu's treasure was right beside him. He had missed it for so many years without realizing it. Uncle Chen, since the location of the tomb of Rizu has been discovered, passed down the order for the 3 royal families to prepare to depart. Lu Qianzhong held the completed dragon scroll in his hand. Excitement and agitation flashed across his face. Chen Yang was a little worried. "Young master, aren't there too many people going in this time? The 3 royal families are only afraid of the Divine Lord. On the surface, they seem to be subservient to us. I'm worried that after entering the tomb of Rizu, they won't be able to hold back their greed and join forces to compete with you. No matter how many loaches there are in a small pond, they won't be able to transform into a real dragon. At most, they are just a group of water snakes. They won't be able to stop me. What about you? Have you thought about it? Are you willing to be my woman, or like those 7 people, become mine?" Chapter 2141. The lady was extremely beautiful, but her expression was as cold as ice. She was filled with loneliness and coldness. Even under Lu Qianzhong's greedy gaze, her expression didn't change at all. Instead, the remaining 3 women beside her knelt down in front of Lu Qianzhong with fear. "Young master, I beg you. Don't use us as sacrifices. We're different from her. We're willing to be your women. We're willing to sacrifice everything for you." These ladies were also very beautiful. If they were outside, they would definitely have many suitors. However, compared to the lady who was standing, they paled in comparison. Lu Qianzhong didn't even look at these ladies. He stared coldly at the only lady who was standing and sighed. "You are still so stubborn. When I met you back then, your realm was sealed and you were no different from an ordinary person. I was the one who unsealed your realm and helped you break through to the Dominator realm in a short time. If you become my woman, not only will you not die, you will also become the high and mighty crown princess. Aren't you tempted at all?" There was no response. The entire room was unusually quiet. Lu Qianzhong's expression instantly turned cold, and there was a hint of anger. This anger made him want to rush up and punch and kick them. However, when he thought of Bai Yun Divine Lord's advice, he suppressed his anger. These 4 men and 4 women were the key to obtaining Rizu's inheritance. He couldn't touch them. "I have given you more than one chance. Unfortunately, you don't know how to cherish it. Then, you will be the same as the others. You will become Rizu's sacrifice and my stepping stone to glory." Lu Qianzhong walked out. Before he left, he formed a seal with his hand. Under this seal, the 3 terrified women suddenly became sluggish. They were like puppets as they mechanically put on their black iron masks and stood in the room mechanically. Obviously, Bai Yun Divine Lord's restriction wasn't as simple as hiding their aura. Boom! Within the grotto heaven world, Yi Fei brandished his dark steel heavy sword. His entire body resembled a humanoid dragon beast as he battled the soaring serpent. At this moment, the soaring serpent had also suppressed its realm to that of the Lord of Heaven. It continuously attacked Yi Fei and the dark steel heavy sword. However, the dark steel heavy sword, which had been upgraded to the 5th tier, was simply too heavy. One would need 200,000 jin of divine strength to lift it. Its true power could only be unleashed when it weighed 150,000 kilograms. Moreover, there were 5 divine imprints on the black iron heavy sword, making it appear very mysterious. The only thing that made Yi Fei gloomy was that there was a turtle carved on the top of the divine imprint, making the black iron heavy sword lose a trace of its murderous aura. This tortoise was naturally Xiao Chao's masterpiece. Every spirit augmentation grandmaster had their own unique symbol, but Xiao Chao had actually used the tortoise as his own symbol. Yi Fei was very depressed about this, but after Xiao Chao's spirit augmentation, the strength of his black iron heavy sword had increased tremendously. Boom! Suddenly, the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd level divine imprints on the dark steel heavy sword in Yi Fei's hands began to shine like stars. This caused the dark steel heavy sword's strength to become even more terrifying. A 1st level divine imprint could double the combat strength of an Empyrean. A 2nd level divine imprint could double the strength of a sovereign. As for a 3rd level divine imprint, it could allow a martial artist who wasn't the Lord of Heaven to unleash an attack from the Lord of Heaven. At this moment, Yi Fei suddenly ignited his sovereign source and attempted to activate the 3rd level divine imprint. Instantly, his attack contained a trace of the Lord of Heaven's aura. At this moment, it was as if he had returned to the time when he was in the imperial city of Heavenly River, when he fought the Lord of Heaven, King Chu. The dark steel heavy sword brought with it a raging wind that caused the void to tremble. It also caused the soaring serpent to cry out in pain. Yi Fei's cultivation base also rose, from the early Lord of Heaven to the middle Lord of Heaven. In the end, the soaring serpent steeled its heart and raised its cultivation base to the late Lord of Heaven. With a single punch, Yi Fei was sent flying along with his dark steel heavy sword. Even so, the soaring serpent's attack only lightly injured Yi Fei. This was because at the critical moment, Yi Fei had used the dark steel heavy sword as a shield in front of him, greatly weakening the soaring serpent's attack. At the same time, the 3 divine imprints on the dark steel heavy sword dimmed. The soaring serpent's expression also became uncertain. What a terrifying dark steel heavy sword! Not to mention the divine imprints on it, just its 5th level material alone is difficult to damage even if I use the combat strength of a Dao monarch. After all, the full power of a 5th level spirit weapon was equivalent to the attack of a divine lord. At this moment, the heavenly Dao tree solemnly took out a bottle of blood and handed it over. Spirit Lord, this is the essence of our heavenly Dao tree's heavenly Dao elixir. It's even more precious than deity tribulation elixir. After you consume it, you will be able to fully activate the dark steel heavy sword. All the divine imprints on it can only be used once. Therefore, you must not use it unless it's a matter of life and death. Senior, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Yi Fei knew that this was the life-saving trump card the heavenly Tao tree had given him. A half-step divine Lord protective jade tablet, a drop of heavenly Tao elixir, and a dark steel heavy sword. These were the 3 trump cards Yi Fei had to enter Rizu's tomb this time. Today was also the day that Lu Qianzhong gathered everyone to enter Rizu's tomb. Yi Fei didn't say much. After bidding farewell to everyone briefly, he carried the dark steel heavy sword on his back and rushed with the Lord of Heaven Gua to a mountain peak controlled by the clear cloud pavilion. This mountain peak was called the Broken Cliff Peak. At this moment, more than half of the peak was engulfed by intense dark fog. In the thick fog, one could vaguely hear the roars of vicious beasts. Moreover, these vicious beasts were extremely powerful. Master, this is the number 1 grotto heaven of the Baiyun nation, the Death Grotto Heaven. It is filled with the aura of death all year round. There are even vicious beasts of the Tao monarch realm residing here. Even old man Qinyun doesn't dare to set foot in here, the Lord of Heaven Gua said. Yi Fei was also shocked. This grotto heaven world actually had vicious beasts of the Tao monarch realm. This was the Death Grotto Heaven in name only. Then won't it be very dangerous for sovereigns like us to enter? Not really. According to Lu Qianzhong, these vicious beasts were purposely imprisoned here by Rizu to protect his tomb. If you have Rizu's token, they won't attack. Oh right, I've already spoken to the Medicine King. This time, you can move together with the young master. The Lord of Heaven Gua led Yi Fei over. They arrived in front of a young man who looked very similar to the Medicine King. Beside the young man stood 9 young men and women with powerful auras. They were the youngest sovereigns of the Medicine King manor. Yi Fei saw that on the other side, there were also people from the Clear Cloud Pavilion. However, there were only 5 of them. Gao Yu, who had been possessed, was also among them. However, he wasn't the leader. Instead, it was a stern-looking young man standing in front. Chapter 2142. When the warship of the Tianhe kingdom landed, Yi Fei felt an extremely cold gaze on him. He turned around and saw a sickly man. He was clearly a living person, but his body was filled with a dense aura of death. This is the prince of the Tianhe kingdom, Bai Lung. It is said that he has the body of a ghost infant. If he touches a living person, he can take away their vitality. An indifferent voice came from beside Yi Fei. His name was Guiyun, the young prince of the Medicine Manor, and also the number 1 genius of the Gua family. The Lord of Heaven Gua came from a branch of the Gua family of the Medicine Manor. He had once asked Guiyun to build a good relationship with Yi Fei in the tomb of Rizu. The Lord of Heaven Gua's original intention was for Guiyun and Yi Fei to work together and take care of each other. However, Guiyun did not think so. He just thought that the Lord of Heaven Gua wanted him to help Yi Fei. Seeing that the Lord of Heaven Guafan was from the same clan as Yi Fei, Guafan put down his pride and took the initiative to introduce Yi Fei. Over there is the prince of the Yunxue kingdom, Xiao Yang. He has a very strong frost bloodline. The Yunxue kingdom's innate ability, the great ice sealing technique, is very powerful. Of course, you don't have to pay attention to him. However, you must be careful of the prince of the West Qin kingdom, Qin Weiyang. Guiyun pointed at the prince of the West Qin kingdom, who appeared last, and reminded him carefully. Qin Weiyang also seemed to have sensed Yi Fei's gaze. Under the gaze of Yi Fei, he suddenly turned around and revealed a very cruel smile. Bai Lung's gaze was cold. He stared coldly at Yi Fei and said, "I heard that my aunt, King Lu, and King Qi were killed by you. You are not bad. I am very interested in your body." Hearing this, not only Yi Fei, but everyone present felt a chill run down their spine. Everyone in Qingzhou knew that the Tianhe kingdom was founded on corpse soldiers. The royal family of the Tianhe kingdom did not trust the living. Instead, they were more willing to trust the dead. Yi Fei pretended not to hear Bai Leng's provocation. He just looked at the sky and saw Lu Qianzhong flying over with Lord Daoist Chen Yang. Behind them were 4 men and 4 women wearing dark iron masks, which piqued the curiosity of many people. However, Lu Qianzhong had no intention of explaining. He didn't even bother to look at the geniuses from Qingzhou. He just sighed indifferently and said, "This is your last chance. Do you really not want to cherish it?" Many people who wanted to curry favor with Lu Qianzhong didn't know how to reply. Only Yi Fei noticed that when Lu Qianzhong said that, one of the women behind him seemed to pause for a moment before returning to normal. Yi Fei immediately instructed Xiao Chao to keep a close eye on the woman. Even though the monarch god's restriction had caused the 8 people's appearances and auras to become blurry, they could still rely on the subtle changes in their footstep. Yi Fei still recognized the familiar figure. He secretly instructed Xiao Chao to keep a close eye on the figure. Then, Yi Fei followed the people from the medicine manor into the dark fog. Boom! As soon as they entered the fog, a terrifying aura of vicious beasts came from within. The aura was extremely majestic, and seemed to be able to cover the entire world. Not far ahead, Guiyun's expression changed and he hurriedly said, "Everyone, be careful. This is the aura of Lord Daoist Vicious Beast. This should be the guardian beast of the graveyard. Don't be nervous. As long as we have the thunder token, it won't hurt us." Lu Qianzhong took out the token first. He waved it at the darkness. The token seemed to have a strange power that could dispel the darkness. The aura of Lord Daoist Vicious Beasts no longer shrouded Lu Qianzhong. Seeing that the token was effective, Yi Fei hurriedly took it out too. "Let's go. Everyone, follow closely. Remember, no matter what treasures you find inside, you are not allowed to take them. Hand them all over. When we return, the medicine manor will distribute them according to your contributions. Especially you, Yi Fei. You must remember this." Guiyun didn't forget to remind Yi Fei when he rushed into the darkness. Yi Fei was unhappy, but he couldn't say anything for the sake of Guiyun, the Lord of Heaven. He could only follow silently at the back. After more than 10 days, the group finally passed through the vast darkness and arrived at the entrance of the Death Grotto Heaven. There was also a huge crystal wall there with lightning flashing inside. This should be Rizu's graveyard. In the past, my grandfather came here to attack this estate world as well, but he was unable to break through it. Instead, he awoke that Daolord beast, causing this estate world to become a land of death. Gao Jun had a complicated look on his face. Originally, this grotto heaven was occupied by the Clear Cloud Pavilion. Now it was forced to open to all forces. Maybe this is fate. This grotto heaven was waiting for a fated person like Your Highness Qianzhong. Guiyun looked at Lu Qianzhong with a fawning look. Lu Qianzhong seemed to be in a bad mood and ignored Guiyun's flattery. He just ordered the 8 people behind him to activate the divine runes on the token and walk towards the entrance of the grotto heaven. Boom! The divine runes on the token and the lightning in the grotto heaven had a magical reaction. Soon, a mysterious lightning door was formed at the entrance. Lu Qianzhong took the lead and walked in with his subordinate. However, when it was the medicine manor's turn, a man in red rushed over from the western Qin nation. He wanted to cut the line, but when he activated the token, he didn't enter. Instead, a terrifying lightning burst out from the lightning door. The man was so scared that he suddenly unleashed the terrifying power of the Lord of Heaven. Only then did he manage to block the lightning and retreat in fear. The Lord of Heaven? The Western Qin nation is so cunning. You even hid the Lord of Heaven. Unfortunately, this is Renzu's tomb. You'd better put away your little tricks. Get lost. A roar came from the darkness. The guardian beast was enraged. A huge beast claw suddenly appeared, grabbed the Lord of Heaven, and threw him out. This made the others tense up and they didn't dare to play any tricks anymore. 2 experts from the Snow Cloud Nation and the Sky River Nation who had deliberately suppressed their territory and wanted to sneak in withdrew. Yi Fei also stared at the Lord of Heaven of the Sky River Nation with a solemn expression. He had never seen this Lord of Heaven in the Sky River Nation. Needless to say, this person must have been promoted to the Lord of Heaven after he escaped from the Sky River Nation. Is this trick useful? Renzu's treasure is destined to belong to His Highness Qianzhong and the Medicine Manor. Guiyun snorted and led the people from the Medicine Manor into the Grotto Heaven world. Yi Fei followed them in silently. As soon as he entered, he realized that the whole Grotto Heaven world was a world of lightning. And this wasn't ordinary lightning, it was the law lightning. The lightning formed by the law was roaring in front of everyone. Some turned into lightning dragons, some turned into lightning snakes. The only safe place was a huge lightning tablet with a few lines of lightning written on it. Those who survive the bombardment of lightning can enter my tomb. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.